Hey, what's up? This is Gary from Raz Rentals, and welcome to my overly excessive and probably way too long Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1987 Fred Wolf series complete Turtle Van animated history. Man, what a title. Back on November 2nd, I got a notification from NECA that they were going to be shipping me my NECA Fred Wolf series Turtle Van, right? And as soon as I saw that, I thought, challenge accepted. Now, I'm sure, all of the Raz Rental regulars out there know that my NECA Fred Wolf series reviews usually include an animated history for the characters, plus an overly obsessive amount of details about the accessories, right? So, when I was thinking about the Turtle Van, I was like, this is such a huge part of the Ninja Turtle franchise. Like, I gotta do something big, something exceptional. And I think I've done that, all right? Because, like I said, weeks before I even got this thing, I started planning out how to make this history video. I went through my my Turtle Van folder on my laptop and try to organize every single screenshot that I had, split it up by part or the area of the van. And even after doing that, and we're talking hundreds of screenshots, I thought, you know what? It's not enough. I got to make sure. I got to make sure that I cover everything. So I started, scrubbing through every single episode of the cartoon, from Turtle Tracks all the way up to Divide and Conquer. And I made some marks about where the scenes were featuring the Turtle Van. I went through later on and grabbed all the screenshots. I wrote a, where is it? I wrote a 40-page explanation of everything the Turtle Van, including all the battles. Every time they used the roof blasters, every time they used the side door blasters, every time they converted the van into a different type of vehicle, it's all included here. Trust me. And if like you're even looking for more information, because this video features, I don't know, around 1,000 screenshots from around 100 episodes or so, this is like the, in my opinion, like the definitive Turtle Van reference video. Like, you'll be able to see the inside of the van done by so many different animation companies and stuff like that. You'll see it doesn't really, like, it evolves a little bit, but it's in like seasons 3 and 4, it's a little loose sometimes with on model. In like 5, 6, and 7, they sort of tighten it up a certain way, and then in 8, 9, and 10, they tighten it up in a completely different way. I don't know, it's very interesting. So I hope you find it to be very interesting too. So like I said, I started putting this video together on November 2nd, and I didn't stop editing it until December 28th. It took me a long time. I got sick for a little bit in there, so I couldn't do any voiceovers. So I apologize. There are some spots in this video where my voice is a little rough, but I think in general, it's okay, Originally, I planned on having one huge video, where I was going to review the toy, and then I was going to go over the whole animation history. But eventually I realized that the animation history was going to be about 2.5 hours, and I was like, no, this needs to be 2 videos. So this is like part 1 of my NECA Turtle Van review, alright? Here I'm just laying out all the history, all the information, and then in part 2, when I discuss the actual toy, I'll go over like the accuracy with the van, and then like, I don't know, try to like put in context some of the stuff inside of this toy as compared to the cartoon. Like if we're talking about the wall behind the seats with the ladder, you can be like, in certain in certain episodes they actually climb up that ladder. Other times that ladder wall is just completely gone and it's just seats. Fun stuff like that. Or like, when they use the roof blasters to shoot water or to actually shoot grappling hooks. There's altogether, it's a lot of information, probably too much information. And eventually what I plan on doing is sometime soon, I'm going to type up the breakdown of this video and put it in the description. That way, if you're ever looking for anything about the turtle van, you could just look at the description and be like, okay, here they were using the blasters, like I said, as grappling hooks, or they actually shot the blasters at villains, like in Night of the Dark Turtle. They actually shoot those blasters at the Triceratons. They don't hit any of them, but you know, they're blasting. But when I finished editing last night, all I could think was like, man, that is such a huge weight off my shoulders. Like, cause honestly, this is all I've been doing. You know, I haven't been working on any other videos. Most days I just come home and you'd be working or editing stuff for like 3 hours, almost every night. Sometimes more than 3 hours. It was a lot of work, but I did it. So without further ado, let's get into this animation history. And at the end, I'll just come back to bookend this thing, all right? All right, let's go. Before getting into the actual Turtle Van history, I gotta mention the Turtle Van in the opening of the show. For a lot of people, the van's appearance in the intro was probably the first time that they ever saw it. And man, what an amazing introduction to the van it is. You know, 10 seconds in and you're greeted by a turtle shell. If you never saw this before, you might be thinking that, you know, maybe that's like one of the Ninja Turtles' backs. But no, it opens up to reveal the guys inside all ready for action. The camera pulls out to show the turtle van in full, and then the van's catapult, or turtle launcher, as Donatello calls it, launches them into the air, as their pal April is shown to be driving the vehicle. I love how you can still see the guys rising in the air in the mirror as you're looking at April. Peter Chung masterfully storyboarded this intro, and the action is fast and exciting. Even if you never saw the van again in the series, or had the toy, I guarantee you that, you know, even now in your 30s and 40s, you'd be talking to your fellow Ninja Turtle fans, and you'd be going, dude, do you remember that awesome van in the intro? Like, that looked like one of the greatest vehicles of all time. Whatever happened with that thing? I wish I could have seen more of that. And then after that, they didn't even include the van in the newer intro that I think began in season 5. And then in seasons 8 through 10, they only showed the van, like, sort of speeding away as it was tipping over. So, you know, that's kind of a bummer. And now on to actual episode stuff. The Turtle Van made its first appearance in the season 1 episode, A Thing About Rats. Here you can see it in its original form, when it was used on the side of evil. Yeah, it started off its career as the POS ride of the one and only Baxter Stockman. Baxter rides this vehicle home after a long day of working for the Shredder. What he doesn't know, however, is that the Shredder is through using him, and he sent some foot soldiers to kill him. You know, the lengths some people will go not to pay you, I tell you. So luckily, the Turtles were already aware that Baxter was behind the recent Mouser attack on their master, and April gave them his address, so they were able to show up and destroy the foot soldiers before they could destroy Baxter. They tie Baxter up and threaten him until he rats out the whereabouts of the Shredder. And then next, the guys decide to steal his van. All right? Like, you know, I don't think that this is, that you can steal someone's property, even if you know that they're going to jail. So, I don't know what kind of message this is for little kids. and like inside, Donnie's like, beam generators, frequency tracers. Mikey's all happy about stealing this vehicle. You know, they're just a bunch of thieves. Ninja thieves. Which I guess, you know, at least makes sense. So Mikey is the first Ninja Turtle to drive the van. And he's never driven before, so I'm sure they had a fun time. Before heading to fight the Shredder, the guys have to stop by April's apartment to save Splinter and April from some mousers, all right? And her apartment building gets completely demolished. You know, it's a classic episode, right? Finally, they head to the Shredder's headquarters. Mikey enters the building alone, while everyone else gets attacked outside by a army of mousers, all right? In order to stay safe from harm, they all climb on top of the van's roof, until Mikey tricks the Shredder into blasting the Mouser controls, which sends them back into the building. As the episode ends, all of the heroes drive off as Mikey talks about the weird brain creature that he met while he was inside that old house. The funny thing here is when it begins, April's driving, and then they show a clip from earlier on of Mikey driving, and Raph's voice is coming out of Donatello's mouth. Next, it showed up in the episode Hot Rodding Teenagers from Dimension X. Now, this is the big one. This is the first real appearance of the turtle van, right? Because it opens with the guys arriving at Baxter's laboratory. Donatello says that they can use Baxter's equipment to turn the van into a tracking station to hunt down the Technodrome, again, resorting to stealing. How are they going to get up there? Well, the guys use their super strength to push the van up the steps. Like, holy crap, these dudes are super jacked. Like, if you ever try to push a vehicle up a hill, it is not an easy task. And I do got to say that, like April, maybe your highness could have waited at the bottom of the steps until they were done, You're like extra 120 to 130 pounds didn't help the guys push this thing up the hill. In an even more impressive feat of strength, Donatello alone rips off the side of the van, and he just throws it down on the ground. It's like, Donatello's got both brains and brawn. So Donatello starts to build the van by adding the side door seat. Have you ever had to bolt something heavy in place while holding it at the same time? It's not easy, Like, maybe the other turtles could have given him a hand here. So Donatello finishes up the van in, I don't know, I'm assuming 15 minutes turtle time. And Leo complains and says that the roof needs to be 3 feet higher so that he can practice his sword swing while they're driving around. And Mikey complains that Donatello put all this gear in there, but he left out a pizza oven. Man, ungrateful bums. That's all I gotta say. If I was Donatello, I would have quit the team right then and there, Like, he doesn't need that shit from Michelangelo. But, anyway, it must have gotten to him eventually because there is a pizza oven in the van later on in the series. In the episode, A Real Snow Job, that, we'll discuss once we get there. A long time from now. So Donnie tells them to shut up because, he put every weapon he could think of in the van. And he filled it up with all the surveillance gear that he could find in Baxter's laboratory. And then everybody jumps aboard, puts their seatbelts on, and off they go down the stairs and through the door. Now, before we go any further, it's actually pretty rare until the later seasons to see the guys wear seatbelts. Most of the times they're just kind of floating around in the van. And I assume maybe like upper management came down and was like, we need to put these people in seatbelts. And then there's this wall right here behind Donatello. That wall right there is actually like shrunk to fit in that space. It's actually supposed to be the whole inside of the van, from the floor to the roof. Lots of times in the show, that wall is like completely missing. But I would assume that it's supposed to always be there, like, in the van model sheet. That, like, bit in the middle there is actually the ladder that leads up to the sunroof of the van. And in the episode 20,000 Leagues Under the Sewers, you can see it best, them climb up the ladder and through that little hole on the top. Sometimes later on, the wall is there, but there's, like, an opening that the turtles can climb through to get from the front to the back. On the right side of this picture, you can see the side door blaster as it's like collapsed on the wall. This on the left here is surveillance gear that Donatello refers to a few times throughout the series as his scanner. Sometimes that screen will also show the television or April when she's calling them on her turtle comm. Moving on, the first thing that Donatello does is to use his surveillance equipment to locate the Technodrome, which he says is parked underneath the Global Trade Center. Now, I completely love the animation of April as she's driving after he says this, because, like, April's voice can be heard, but her mouth does not move with the voice at all, and she just moves very violently while steering the wheel. It's kind of hilarious. The neutrinos enter our world through a portal in the Technodrome, and they fly their star cruiser all the way up to the streets of New York City, just as the guys were about to head down into the sewers to try to find the Technodrome. So the guys think the neutrinos might be evil, so they chase after them. Here we can see Donatello's surveillance technology in action. Leo devises a plan to cut the neutrinos off by heading to where they think the neutrinos are going to head, before they actually get there, sort of thing. They're trying to figure out a pattern. Now, this giant screen in the back is never really seen again from what I remember. Like, it is never really that big. And I assume that Peter Chung designed this framing, or at least designed some of this van, because this shot of the van looks like one of the most Peter Chung things I've ever seen, especially those like levers sticking, or like shifting gears or whatever sticking out of the steering wheel. I don't know, just how they come to that sharp point just reminds me a lot of Peter Chung. So in order to stop the neutrinos, they use the van's catapult, which Donnie calls the turtle launcher. This device is used pretty sparingly throughout the show. And then the guys, fly up in the air and catch the neutrinos. Everybody gets acquainted. The usual thing happens where everybody sort of thinks they're enemies, but then they all find out that they're on the same side. They all go to an arcade that's filled with disfigured mutants, and that's when the Rock Soldiers attack. And it leads to Turtle Van Battle number 1. The Turtle Van versus the Techno Rover. This is the first battle of the Turtle Van, and it is a decent one. I think this one's pretty good. The Turtles run to the van and head straight forward to the Techno Rover. They're going at this thing completely head on. Raph pops out of the side to blast with the door cannon, or the laser cannon, whatever you want to call it. April does her best to drive the van out of the way of some Techno Rover eye missiles. Donnie views the battle from the sunroof and also calls out his battle strategy. On the other side of the van, the door lowers to reveal Leonardo, who pulls out his sword so he can swipe the treads of the Techno Rover. Now that is one super sharp sword. As the heroes wait for the Rock Soldiers' next move, we get some great angles of Raph sitting behind the door blaster. Look at that. You look right down at that thing. It's pretty cool. When the cops come, everybody, books it and heads toward the sewers so they can talk to Master Splinter. It kind of seems irresponsible to leave all these humans to face the deadly Rock Soldiers alone, right? But don't worry, the Rock Soldiers don't completely destroy them. Instead, they release a weather satellite that unleashes total chaos upon the land, When the guys come back up to the surface, they see that it's snowing blocks of ice. So they get in their van and then they head down to the Technodrome. Now, I don't know how they managed to drive the van all the way down there. I assume that there's some kind of perfect slope that'll take them all the way down to the Technodrome. After they park it outside of the Technodrome, they never show the van again throughout the rest of the episode. They don't even use it to stop the weather satellite. You would figure that they would use the catapult to shoot them up in the air, but instead they use the neutrino star cruiser to fly up there so Leonardo can slice the satellite in half with his sword. So after the initial Turtle Van introduction and the mighty Rock Soldier battle, the Turtles use the van pretty frequently throughout the series, They usually ride it from place to place, or Donatello uses the scanner, in the back to follow something or track something down. He'll also use the computers every now and then to analyze some tech or analyze some substance. I think, altogether there's about 19 Ninja Turtle van battles that I'm gonna talk about, every single one of them. You kind of wish that there would be more episodes featuring the guys blasting an army of Techno Rovers, or maybe even blasting the Technodrome with all of their blasters, but no. Just a few things here and there throughout almost 200 episodes. Now, I know I'm not getting very deep at the moment, but that's about to change, because right now I'm going to overload your mind with tons and tons of Turtle Van facts. Way more than anyone should ever know, all right? I'm going to try and cover every important event to feature the Turtle Van chronologically, discuss the battles, when Donatello uses the equipment in the back, the disguises they put on the Turtle Van sometimes, the elemental conversions. I'm going to mention every single time that I found the Turtle Van throughout the series as I was looking through it for Ninja Turtle Van footage, which is a lot. And I checked the Turtle Wiki, the fan wiki or whatever, and I do have more episodes than are actually listed there. So, be prepared. Now, if for some reason I managed to miss something, please let me know in the comments, or let me know what your favorite Turtle Van episodes are. I think after watching all these, I think that the Turtle Van was used the best in season 5. I think that season 5 had a lot of really cool Turtle Van episodes. But we're going to get into all of it, and I'm going to try to make a nice time code at the bottom of this video so you can skip around to find whatever information you're trying to find. I'm really hoping that this is going to be the most comprehensive Turtle Van list of all time. The perfect reference for any Ninja Turtle fan. So let's begin. In the first episode of Season 2, Return of the Shredder, there's a cool shot of the inside of the van, but they don't drive it at all. They take the blimp to go to Channel 6 where April is ready to show them footage of the crooked Ninja Turtle gang. In The Incredible Shrinking Turtles, an unnamed alien falls from the sky and lands in the lake in the park. Luckily, the Ninja Turtles are practicing their ninjutsu, so they witness everything. After the Turtles pull him out of the water, the alien says that they must find the fragments of the Eye of Sarnoth, which are 3 pieces of his ship that fell to the earth. When combined, they'll grant the possessor undreamed power. What's funny is, in this scene, the Shredder is off in the background being a peeping Tom, just watching the Ninja Turtles behind a bush. So, this alien gives the guys his crystal converger, which will help them track the pieces down, and then he disintegrates. So, first the guys drive the van while trying to track down the first piece. I like how some of these shots, it looks like there could be a wall right behind the seats, or maybe it's just the back doors. I'm not really sure. In the distance, the Shredder spies on them again with some binoculars. And I love the way that shot is set up, the framing of the binoculars. Like I said, Shredder's doing a lot of peeping in this episode. He's a little bit of a creep. So using the crystal converger, Donatello directs Leonardo to find the first fragment. Where does it lead them to? Well, the first fragment is sitting on a garbage barge. It's in a garbage truck and then it gets dumped into the barge. So here's the guys exiting the van, and I like all the bits of red inside there. It's not the right color, but it just looks cool. Those red highlights would have been kind of nice if they would have included those in other episodes. So the guys try to retrieve the fragment, but the Shredder shows up and he completely decimates the guys. He just beats the snot out of them, and he gains control of the first fragment. With the fragment, the Shredder gains the ability to shrink the turtles. He tries to stomp on them, but the guys take off, and they manage to escape to the sewers, where they tell Splinter of their latest defeat. So Splinter calls April for help, and then the next time we see either Splinter or April, they're both riding in the van, and Splinter is discussing how they need to find the Shredder and the fragments. So I guess April ran down to the shipyard and grabbed the van and picked Splinter up, maybe? I don't know. While driving, the dashboard TV turns on to play a special bulletin. Now, if you look at the dash here, it's a little different than how it appears. It's, this to me does not look like on-model dashboard. And there are some episodes later on where there is a TV in the dashboard, but like I said, it doesn't look like this. So this bulletin shows the Empire State Building shrinking. So April and Splinter head there in hopes of finding the Shredder. Unfortunately, April and Splinter get caught in traffic. Ah, man, gridlocked. This show just got too real. Back in the sewers, The guys get caught in a sewage wave, which sends them on a journey through the sewers, and eventually they end up getting kidnapped by Baxter Stockman, and Baxter takes them back to the Shredder's hideout. So that leads to the next Turtle Van scene. As Splinter and April are driving around trying to find the Shredder, Splinter senses that the Turtles are close by, and then he directs April to drive to the Shredder's current hideout, where they drive right through the door. Wow. Exciting. It's a good thing they showed up just in time, because the Shredder was just going to show the Turtles his favorite death in the family scene. Now, I really like this episode. This is a good one. And this scene is pretty cool because Splinter actually uses the turtle launcher, or the van catapult, to launch himself right into a fight with the Shredder. Here, the catapult works like it does in the intro and in the season 1 episode, where it looks like the catapult is coming from the actual floor of the turtle van. Later on, you'll see some catapults which are very different. Also, look how they messed up the colors here. That's kind of funny looking. While Splinter is fighting his mortal enemy, April exits the van so she can turn the turtles back to normal size. Unfortunately, I missed this episode during my first edit of this video. I don't know how. I think something got mixed up. I had screenshots and everything saved from this one, but I guess when I did my write-up, I just somehow managed to skip it. So thanks to Rin Ryoki, I'm sorry if I butchered your name, for sharing some information with me to remind me that this catapult scene was included in this episode. Thank you. In the episode, it came from beneath the sewers. The guys ride the van while using the Eye of Sarnoth tracker. There's some pretty cool shots here. I like the inside of the van. I also like how all 5 of them are sitting in the front seat. Like, that's just hilarious. Just think of how big this vehicle would have to be to fit all of them. Later on in the episode, the guys get a call from the Shredder, who, you guessed it, kidnapped April and is now using her turtle comm to get in touch with them. Here's a nice shot of the underside of the turtle van. No license plate, though. Again, all 4 of them are in the front, and in this episode, here is the pedal. And now here is the main event of the episode. Turtle Van Battle number 2. The Turtle Van versus the mutated plant from Dimension X. In this episode, a fragment of the Eye of Sarnoth came in contact with some Dimension X plant residue on the Shredder's boots. That plant grows to an immense size and attacks the city. Because of this, Raph uses the side door blaster to shoot some of the plant tentacles filling the road. Eventually, the guys find the head, or it finds them, and do they use any of the blasters to stop it? No. It eats the turtle van bumper, and they jump out, only to get roughed up like a bunch of rookies. It does leave, but come on. Like, they could have used the roof blasters to turn it into like a fried rutabaga or something like that. Next up is the Season 2 episode, The Mean Machines. This is another great episode. In this one, Donatello invented a very cool-looking Eye of Sarnoth tracker. He built it with circuits taken from the alien ship that brought the eye to Earth, from the episode The Incredible Shrinking Turtles. Now, at first he believes that the tracker isn't working as well as it could, so he decides to attach it to the scanner in the back of the van. And this is a big mistake, all right, because the two technologies, they don't mesh well. They do not mix well together, and the van goes haywire. It even tries to run the turtles over until Mikey expertly throws his chucks through the driver's side window. Absolutely impossible. And it turns the wheel to turn out of the way before hitting them. That is ridiculous. Later on in the episode, the guys drive the van to stop Omnis. Omnis is, an evil AI that creates images of your favorite cartoon characters as 80s sci-fi characters. He also has the power to control all of the machines in the city. Omnis takes control of the van. He locks the doors, and Leo can't control the vehicle. So luckily, Donatello hooks the tracker up again to the van scanner, and it shorts out the van. Now, finally, Leo is able to stop the van before it runs into something. And I don't know if you noticed, but for some reason, there was no gas pedal. There's only a brake. So here's a big shot of the dash, which I think is the first one I've seen so far through the series. Next, in the Season 2 episode, Enter the Fly, here you have Turtle Van Battle number 3. In this episode, it's the Turtle Van versus the Technodrome crew, all right? Because in this episode, the Turtles are stuck between a rock and a trash heap, all right? On one side are Bebop, Rocksteady, Shredder, and Baxter with stun rifles, and on the other side is a set of electrodes that will shift their molecular structures a microsecond in time, thus rendering them permanently out of phase with the rest of the world. They'll vanish forever. Man, good thing I don't write cartoons. I just would have made it like the electrodes zap them real good or something. So Splinter crashes onto the scene in the van to save the guys, and he actually uses the roof blasters to shoot the guns out of the villain's hands, and he also shoots by the Shredder's feet, which makes him drop the Gazai plant, which, you know, they have to use in this episode to cure April from the effects of the Doku plants. After this radical rescue, they say Splinter's a great shot, despite being someone who doesn't like violence. Next up is Splinter No More. Here the guys are just driving to the Cornelius building. Leo's reading while driving. It's very unsafe, dude. Plus, Mikey and Raph are just crouching behind the seats with no seatbelts, riding around without seatbelts. What is this? The 1980s? You know what's going to happen to them? Yeah, that's exactly what happens to them. I also like the shots of the inside of the van in blue here. You know, these shots look pretty cool and maybe a little different, the model, or, you know, just a little interesting. That's all for this episode. Finally, you have the Season 2 episode, New York's Shiniest. Here you have Turtle Van Battle number 4, the van versus the evil Rexes. Here, the evil Rexes surround the guys on a bridge. The Rexes outnumber the guys 3-1. Now, before the commercial break, Leo pulls out his swords, and he acts like he's ready to fight the Rexes. But when the show returns, the Rexes command the guys to surrender in the name of the Shredder, and they blast a warning shot, which it creates a hole in front of the van. And instead of fighting, instead of using those roof blasters or side door blasters or anything, or just maybe even backing up over the Rexes, Leo decides that he's going to drive the van into the river. All right. Like, seriously, dude, why would you do that? Like, it looks like he completely wasted the van, because right after he drives it into the river, only the guys' heads pop out of the water, right? So that van is gone, right? Well, no. There must be 2 turtle vans, because a little later in the episode, April, Splinter, and Rex are seen driving a Ninja Turtle van. This one's in perfect shape. It's not covered in river water or barnacles or anything like that. So what happened here? There has to be 2 of them, right? Either that, or this is like a huge plot hole, and I don't know how they, didn't catch on to this. So, Splinter, April, and Rex get surrounded by evil Rexes. So Rex 1 rips the side door off to confront them. Like, have these people no respect for automobiles? Seriously. And that is all for the van in Season 2. Next up in Season 3, I found the Turtle Van in 28 episodes out of 47, and I'm going to talk about every single one of them. So in Beneath the Sewers, they drive through the city. Look at that. Very neat. For some reason, the ceiling looks a little different in this episode. In Attack of the 50-Foot Irma, the brakes give out on the Turtle Van as it's heading towards some live wires. And here, check this out. Like, where's the gas pedal? There's only a brake there. So Donnie has to throw a grappling hook around a streetlight, which stops the van just in time. After this, Raph takes care of the down power lines, and Donnie pulls this switch on the steering wheel to open up the roof so 3 grappling hooks can be shot up to the nearest building's roof. Leo, Mikey, and Raph scale these cool turtle-styled grappling hooks to the top, so they can talk to gigantic Irma. Later on in this episode, Donatello uses this lab table in the back of the van to make a large economy-sized exaporon capsule. This capsule will reverse Irma's growth effects. In Sky Turtles, Donatello uses the turtle van's gravity scope to search for the Shredder's gravity-altering device, which earlier in this episode caused things to float up in the air. As the turtles get near the gravity-altering device, Shredder turns on the hypergravity, which causes the van to flip completely over and land on the roof. The guys, for some reason, are also stuck in this position, just stuck with their heads planted on the ground, which is kind of funny and weird. Here's a nice shot of the underside of the van. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, being stuck doing a headstand, things get worse when an armed Rocksteady finds the turtles in the van. He opens the door, and immediately he is bested. Can you believe that? I guess it wasn't so bad, right? I mean, they took him down, and they were in a pretty bad spot. Now, I kind of like the look of the ceiling here, And here's a cool shot of Mikey next to the van. In the episode The Old Switcheroo, after Splinter and Shredder switch bodies, the Turtles take the Shredder Splinter into the van. And I just wanted to include this because I like the background here. All right, it looks good. In Burns Blues, the guys use the van to track April after she's been kidnapped by S&K. Boy, I wonder who owns that business. In The Fifth Turtle, I believe this is the first time we see this grate being used as the entrance to the sewer lair. For the van. I feel like this is the earliest example I found. All right. It's pretty cool. I like that. Sometimes you see that grate throughout every episode, and if you didn't see these certain times when the van comes in or out of them, you would have no idea that that's actually the entrance. Kind of like the Batcave in the Batmobile in the old 60s show. Also in this episode, we learn that the guys don't lock the van's doors, all right? They have no security on this thing because Zach, the fifth turtle, is able to open up the van doors while the turtles are busy, and he paints a special sticky paint onto the floor, which he then uses to follow the guys to their sewer lair. And what a bunch of bums. I like the shot of the van here at the end, as Zach is rubbing in his brother's face that he's friends with the Ninja Turtles. In Enter the Rat King, the guys ride to the Channel 6 building. Wow. Up next, you have Attack of the Big Mac. And more importantly, you have Turtle Van Battle number 5. Well, the guys never shoot, but whatever, In this episode, the Shredder takes control of Mac, the peace-loving defective robot from 400 years in the future, and he unleashes him upon the city. He tells Mac to destroy things, right? So April tips the guys off on this. Now, check out the dash there. That's pretty cool. And they head toward Mac to stop him, all right? So here, look at this, too. You have 2 rows of seats. So when they reach Mac, Mac shoots the window, and it looks as though maybe he blew up the van, all right? And they never show what actually happens to the van, but there is an explosion animation. So I assume he did some major damage to the turtle van. Next up, 20,000 Leaks Under the City. Another exciting episode featuring the turtle van and the first turtle van conversion. All right, that's cool. All right, in this episode, Krang floods New York City. So Donatello flips the wheels and converts the van into an amphibian. All right. This episode spends a lot of time in the van, so we get to see some nice inside shots. If you're looking for reference, I recommend this one. This is a pretty decent one. Here's a shot looking back from the fronts. Here's the scanner, and could you just imagine how gigantic this van must be? I don't know, the size of the inside of the van seems to stretch whenever they need it to, right? To immense proportions. I have a theory about this. I think maybe the inside of the van is a different dimension than the outside of the van. Now, I mentioned this earlier when I was talking about the Hot Rodding Teenagers for Dimension X, but this episode is cool because you actually see the guys climb up the ladder, which leads to the sunroof in the middle of the roof. For some reason, whenever I used to watch the cartoon, I always assumed that this wall with the ladder was the same wall as the doors, because it never made any sense to me, because you could always see the back of the van from the driver's seat. But after you put two and two together, you figure it out, and then you're like, oh, so those cylinders at the top of the wall are actually, the rotating pieces for the roof blasters. I don't know. I'm going to be 40 next year, and I'm just still learning things about this cartoon that I did not realize. So as I said, the guys climb the ladder to get on top of the roof of the vehicle, and it's kind of cool seeing them, hanging out on top of the van, as if they're ready for attack up there. So while the guys are on top of there, that's when we get Turtle Van number 6, because the guys get attacked by a squid, and the Turtle Van battle is the van versus the Shredder boat. You see, while the guys are playing with that giant squid and trying to remove the device that's controlling it, April has to drive the van directly into the Shredder's boats. It's just a very exciting scene, lots of stuff is happening, and I like the van being used as something that's ramming something else. In all honesty, like I said, this episode is a cool one. I like all the shots of the inside of the van, and I just like the whole idea of it, the city being flooded and then driving around in the van on the water. It's just cool, I recommend this one. In Four Musketurtles, the guys drive it to go after Bebop and Rocksteady, and most notably, they talk to Irma on the scanner screen. All right. That's it. Next up, turtles everywhere. This one has some nice Turtle Van bits, including a battle. I can't wait to get to that. But first up, we see the van actually leave through the sewer grate. First we saw it enter the sewers. Now we're seeing it leave. That's great. That brings us to Turtle Van battle number 7. The van versus the recycling robo truck. Here, Shredder is using robotic automated trucks to hunt turtles. This is the Shredder's latest scheme where he's trying to kidnap the Ninja Turtles. I don't know, it's kind of silly, but the episode's okay. So as the guys are riding in the turtle van, one of these automated garbage trucks attacks it. Hey, watch the hands, mister. Donatello isn't having this, so he actually pulls out the side blaster and shoots behind the van, at the truck. Look at this. It's actually shooting backwards and not forwards. This is like a Turtle Van revelation. Because he's such a good shot, he manages to destroy the truck. All right, Donnie. Mikey blames himself for this interaction because he littered earlier in the episode. Now take a look at that. Look at the wall behind the seats. Later on, when the turtles arrive at the futuristic dump, the roof opens to fire 3 plain grappling hooks up on the roof. And Cowabunga Shredhead, they just drive around a lot, I got nothing to say other than that, It looks like there's a seat in front of the back doors. And, Shredder thinks he's Mikey in this episode. In Invasion of the Turtle Snatchers, they drive to Acme Glue Works, which is the Shredder's hideout. In Camera Bugged, they drive to fight the Shredder at Fountain Square. In Green with Jealousy, The guys ride the van dressed up as sailors. They drink a love potion and catcall women. And check out the wall behind them here, or this wall. It looks way off. And finally, this is a nice painting of the van, I gotta say. Next up, Casey Jones. In this episode, Krang creates little mechanical bugs that can control machines. At one point, the guys and Casey get into the van to use the scanner to follow one of these little mechanical bugs. But what they don't know is that a bug has gotten into the van's computers, and it tells Donatello to tell Raph to drive the van right into a river, right? Now the inside of the van is completely filled with water, and it kind of provides some interesting van backgrounds, They look pretty cool in here. Despite being flooded, the backgrounds still look very nice. And here's another one. And another. In Mutagen Monster, they drive to find the mutant's bull. Man, next up is Corporate Raiders from Dimension X. And in this episode, we have a lot of cool things, And first off, I got to say that this is one of my favorite episodes of all time. I love this one, right? So first, the guys stake out a corporation that they believe will be hit next in a string of suspicious kidnappings by men in business suits. I guess all kidnappings are suspicious, but whatever. Eventually, they learn that the businessmen are from Octopus Inc. All right. So here, not only are the guys in their cool construction disguises, but they also put some light, directional arrows on top of the van. And, that looks cool, but I'm sorry, guys. That's not much of a disguise, The front still says Turtles, right? It's still this gigantic, futuristic-looking Volkswagen van that's yellow and green. I don't know who you think you're fooling. So the guys get Casey Jones to infiltrate Octopus Inc. And while Casey Jones is on his job interview, Donatello uses the Turtle Van computers to hack into Octopus's system so he can add Casey's phony job history data. Cool, See, it's doing something different here, not just tracking. Donatello also uses a microphone to talk to Casey while he is on the inside of the building. That's pretty nice too. I do have to say, I love the guys trying to be, inconspicuous here. Parking the van right outside the front of the building in broad daylight. No one would ever think that, maybe the Ninja Turtles are spying on us. Later on, they move the van to the Itty Bitty Corporation because they expect some more business suit people shenanigans are going to happen. There's some nice indoor shots here, including pics of the back door as Raph looks outside. Now, when the guys see some Octopus Inc. men show up at Itty Bitty, Don pulls out his brand new secret weapon, the retro catapults, but it misses the villains and hits the other three guys. Embarrassing, Donnie. Embarrassing. In Super Bebop and Mighty Rocksteady, the guys in April discuss Bebop and Rocksteady's latest attack on the Channel 6 building, where they try to install a mind control device on top of the tower there. I like this painted van here. It just looks so clean in 3D. Later on in this episode, Donatello uses his computer to study Super Bebop and Mighty Rocksteady's schematics. They were able to get them off of the real Bebop and Rocksteady. The animation in this scene is absolutely beautiful. It's very different from the rest of the episode and a lot of other Ninja Turtle episodes. I don't know who is animating this here, but to me, it reminds me very much of Disney afternoon cartoons. In Beware the Lotus, the guys drive around looking for Lotus Blossom because the nasty lady kidnapped their master. Can you believe that crap? These high angle shots are pretty neat, looking at the van. On the dashboard, it's also shown that they have a TV and watch April's newscast. Seems dangerous for the driver, but, whatever. Later, they surrender when Krang threatens to throw Splinter out of a window. And that's when they, put all of their weapons on the street that I guess are inside the van. And look at all that gear. You never see, any of that stuff in the show. In Michelangelo's birthday, the Turtles drive around searching for Mikey, The van looks nice here. It's all painted with no black lines. Same with right here. And this is a nice shot where you can see the ceiling. I don't know. Just trying to, like I said, you could use this as a reference to build your own damn turtle van. Eventually, they run into the Shredder, and he reveals that he captured Mikey, and he can take them to him. Now, look at how deep the dash goes here. That is ridiculous. Here, this wall, I think some of the items in the van are moved around to make room for the side door. The side door is another thing, too, where, sometimes it opens just like the toy, where the top hinges outward, unlike the side, and then the bottom kind of hinges downward. And then other times, it'll be that whole door will just completely hinge down. So the Turtles let the Shredder board the van, but they draw the line at Bebop and Rocksteady, and I don't blame them, Those guys are probably pretty heavy, and when you take into consideration all of the stuff that Donatello has already added to the van, as well as the 4 Turtles and the Shredder, you gotta be well past the maximum weight allowance. In Usagi Yojimbo, Donatello uses the scanner to hunt down some foot soldiers who kidnapped the animal guardian Obento-san. After the dragon Baby Sun is released, Donatello uses the scanner a second time to find the foot soldiers who still have Obento-san. Now, to be honest with you, this is a little bit of a letdown for the Turtle Van, because I would have liked to have, had a Baby Sun chase scene here, Maybe the dragons chasing after them, shooting fire, or maybe they could have, I don't know, I guess they can't blast it because they don't want to hurt it and stuff like that, because Obento-san is very protective of it. I don't know, but I think that they could have maybe did a little bit of something. There's an episode of The Real Ghostbusters called Janine's Day Off, where Peter accidentally combines, I think, all these little gremlins. I can't remember exactly what they are, but they become this giant monster. And this monster chases after the Ecto-1, and it's a very cool scene. In Case of the Hot Kimono, they drive around with Aunt Aggie. I cannot stand this lady, all right? This is April's aunt, but I do not like her, Everybody, jump out and let the van sink her into that river. Despite me not liking Aggie, I really love that shot. That's a really nice shot. It kind of reminds me of, I don't know, it kind of gives me the video game vibes, from the NES, the first game. Just something about it. In Turtle Terminator, Donatello uses his computers to analyze a slimy green plant found in Irma's apartment. According to his analysis, he learns it's seaweed. Something very unusual here is there's a turtle comm stuck to the wall so he can talk to April, all right? Seems weird, but this is not the only episode that this happens. This episode also includes Turtle Van Battle number 8, the Turtle Van versus the Erminator. As they drive towards the deadly robot, she blasts out one of their tires, and the van loses control, and it crashes into a stoplight. Man, they didn't even try to shoot her back, I don't know. Why do they even have those blasters? And the gang's all here. The guys drive around town looking for the Shredder, and then later, 3 of the Turtles drive around looking for Michelangelo, who's turned himself into a human. They even find the wrong guy at one point, and they spray him, which just gets rid of his acne. This episode just has some nice outside shots of the van. In the Gribbix, the guys drive after a weird flying furball that came to our world from Dimension X. Turns out, it's the Gribbix. In the first part of the big ripoff, all I have written down is they drive to Fort Charles. Awesome. It looks here like Donnie pushes a button on the side of the van to open up the door. And that's about it, In the final episode of Season 3, The Big Blowout, man, I can't believe we made it here. The Turtles follow the Technodrome all the way from the city to the Mount Rushmore power antenna. Jeez, how much gas did that take? This is also one long-ass day, because in the beginning of this episode, the guys get attacked in April's news van by the Technodrome, which renders the van out of commission. All right, so they're not even in the city, and somehow they find a ride back to the city sewers, where Splinter tells them that he saw footage of the Technodrome rampaging through the countryside on the 5 o'clock news. Then the heroes drive to the Technodrome in the van, which is right by Mount Rushmore, and according to Google, New York City to Mount Rushmore is a 25-hour trip, all right? Not to mention traffic, pee breaks, unless they're peeing in bottles, and of course, pizza stops. Did night take place at all since they left the sewers? I don't know. As the guys reach the Rushmore antenna, they abandon the van, of course, because why would they want to use the van's arsenal to attack the Technodrome when Don could try and fail to overload it? Yeah, he tries to attach the antenna's generator's main output to the Technodrome, but by the time he gets close enough, the Technodrome has already stolen the antenna, and it is now sucking all of the energy out of the Earth. Now, I actually would have loved to see the Turtle Van versus the Technodrome here. This should have been a battle. They should have been driving the van while trying to blast the Technodrome. So, in the same day, the Technodrome leaves Mount Rushmore and heads back to New York City. Now it's the evening, I guess. So another 25-hour trip, and it's finally nighttime. I like when the guys realize that they accidentally left Splinter in the Technodrome, and it jumps up into the air. That's a nice cartoony effect. When the guys reach the city, they learn that Krang is opening up a portal to send Earth to Dimension X. All right. So again, they abandon the van and use some army equipment to send the Technodrome to Dimension X instead of the Earth. Overall, this is a very fun episode, but, a missed opportunity for the van. One thing I didn't mention before is you actually get to see the Turtle Van keys in this episode. Check that out. I think this is the only time you ever see that. All right, so moving on to Season 4. Out of 40 episodes, I found 18 episodes to feature the Turtle Van, all right? In the episode Turtles of the Jungle, Professor Willard W. Willard accidentally blasts his monkey Jocko with the molecular intensifier, which turns him into a giant monkey. By the end of the episode, Willard reverses the effects of the intensifier as Mikey uses a remote version to blast Jocko from the blimp. Where does the van come in to all of this? Well, attached to the remote molecular intensifier is one long-ass group of cables that leads all the way down to the main intensifier in the van. All right. There, Willard is making sure it's set up the correct way. All right. In the next episode, Michelangelo toys around, and I'm not a fan of this one. The Turtles search for Mikey in the van, and man, Mikey is always going missing here. Turns out he was picked up by the jerks driving the Tyler Toys truck, who mistake him for a giant turtle toy. The guys know about this because April saw the truck drivers kidnap Michelangelo, and she, told them by TurtleCom. The guys try to flag down the Tyler Toys truck, but the jerks think Leo is a toy, and they want to hit him. So they want to see what happens if they hit this giant turtle toy. So Leonardo jumps for safety. He jumps on top of the van and they hit it, which causes it to spin out of control. And, I love how massive the inside of this thing looks. Just gigantic. The force of the spin causes Donnie and Raph to, fling to the walls like they're riding a Gravitron or something. This is also one of the few episodes I found that show the van exit the sewers. In the episode Shredder's Mom, Krang and Shredder turn up the Earth's heat, and they threaten to turn it up even higher and higher. How is the Shredder doing this? By using a portal and a satellite to redirect the sun's rays directly to Earth, right? The satellite's right by the sun, and the portal is, opened by the sun and opened right by the Earth. So we're getting a direct blast of some heat waves. Donatello is able to use a scanner in the van to track the heat rays in space, and April helps introduce them to General Yogurt, so he can take them into outer space and they can go through the portal and solve the problem. I like this shot here. The wall behind the seats looks a little different, a little interesting. Next up, Turtle Maniac. In this episode, April goes to the eccentric millionaire Monroe Q. Flem's house to find her stolen Turtlecom, but she ends up getting abducted instead. Who could have seen that coming? The Turtles try to call her, but get nowhere. I love Leo's face here, like, what? When they do manage to track April down and go to Flem's mansion, they discover that Flem is an obsessive fan. They even tease some very awesome sounding fake episodes, which I'm a little bummed out that we didn't get to see these, like the case of the two-headed biker and an episode where they fight a giant Sumerian slug. Like, sign me up, buddy. The next episode, Rondo of Blood. Rondo of New York. I accidentally actually wrote that down. Rondo of Blood. In this episode, Shredder uses a vitalizer substance to bring movie monsters to life. All right. So in this episode, the guys discuss Shredder's new evil scheme while they're in the van. I just mostly wanted to highlight this shot right here. It's just such a cool bird's eye view of the van driving through the city. I love that. So the guys arrive at a theater where a ton of movie monsters have been unleashed. And even though they know that bright lights hurt them, they don't use their headlights on them. But why? In the episode Planet of the Turtles, Donatello tries to pick up the Planet of the Turtles signal in the van, but he can't because he says that the solar wind has changed. So instead, Raph tells him to put on April, right? The guys watch April as she broadcasts from a helicopter. Then it gets blasted by a blue ray, which drains all of its energy. So it begins to crash. And the helicopter, I don't know, just for some reason in the scene, just kind of looks funny, as it's just small and Donatello's freaking out. It's also a little weird that the ceiling here is green. The guys drive as quick as they can to the dump, but they don't reach April in time. Luckily, she crashed on some super soft garbage. Maybe she landed on a mountain of mattresses or something. Oh, and I forgot to mention that the reason why they couldn't reach April is because they also got blasted with that blue energy beam. The episode Menace Maestro Please opens with the Turtles heading to the Floxy Theater to meet up with April and look at something. The van looks super weird here. Weird. In the back, Mikey uses a remote to turn on April. That's the first time you see that. The guys are pretty shocked at how much of a dump the theater has become. And this episode features Irma's musician boyfriend, Howie. And I hate this dude. I do not like him at all. Every time he talks, I just want to grab him by the shirt and just start shaking him. Here's a picture of the dashboard in this episode. In Superhero for a Day, the guys hang out in their van and watch a geriatric superhero named Gadget Man try and fail to rescue a bus that's about to fall off a bridge. They just sit there at first, but don't worry, they magically teleport the van up onto the bridge just in time to save Gadget Man and the kids. What's really interesting here is Donatello uses the 2 roof blasters to shoot 2 grappling hooks. Then Mikey attaches those grappling hooks to the bus as I think Leonardo backs up the van and pulls the bus to safety. So the blasters here are used not as weapons, but as grappling hooks. Just seems a little interesting. I should also mention that, Donatello's little battle station there, at the sunroof, there's like a scope there that he uses to aim. That's a little interesting and different. I don't think that shows up anywhere else, that little scope. In this episode, Donatello calls those blasters the turtle van roof cannon, and Leo calls the ropes that they shoot turtle cables. Later on in this episode, Donatello uses this non-turtle van device to lead the turtles to the shredder at the East Side power plant, and Gadget Man follows them there. In Raphael Knocks 'Em Dead, Raph is kidnapped by Pinky McFingers and Barney Stockman, the also evil brother of Baxter. They hook him up to a device which amplifies the power of his quick-witted jokes, and then they broadcast them across the city, which makes everybody laugh uncontrollably. And now that they're all easy victims, McFingers can go rob everybody blind. It's a pretty good plan. It was also done sort of, I guess, in Batman, right? So as the turtles search for Raph, Donatello says that the van was installed with a soundwave modifier. Otherwise, they would be helpless with laughter. Now, in this episode, they actually draw the wall in the van in a way that makes sense, because you still have the wall behind the seats, but now there's an opening for Leo to talk to people in the back. And like right here is a nice shot of Leo talking to the people in the back right before he runs the van into a wall. And here's a shot during the same scene where the wall is completely closed. There's also a phone in the back of the van, and for some reason, Burton has the number in order to call April. How did he get that number? Donatello manages to use the scanner or tracker to locate the origin of Raphael's voice. I think it's funny here that Raph's symbol looks like a little turtle. Blip. The next episode is Bebop and Rocksteady Conquer the Universe. In this episode, the turtles are shot with the Anxietron ray. This ray turns them into cowards. They still try to be heroes, but Mike's too scared to drive the van anywhere near the speed limit. After the effects of the Anxietron ray are reversed, the guys quickly drive the van to a runaway train so Donatello can stop that train from hitting Splinter. And then they drive real quick to reach Gorgonzola so Zack can climb inside and save April. In the episode Leonardo lightens up, Leo gets shot with the personality modifying ray, which turns him into a immature jokester who likes to play and have fun instead of doing stupid ninja exercises. Eventually, he leaves the turtles and the lair, but the guys need him to fight some loser keyboard player supervillain. So, they have to go search for Leonardo while driving the van. In this shot, as they look for Leonardo, this is like one of the only few times where you actually see that that red dish spin around in circles. It only happens in very few episodes. Donatello uses the scanner and rules out Leonardo surfing at the beach, so he decides to look up all the skateboard areas and isolate any greenback skaters. Like, couldn't you just do that to begin with? Like, hey computer, find the turtle man. Bada bing, there you go. In all seriousness, though, Donatello probably has microchips planted on all of their belts for just such emergencies, Or if maybe he injected them into their arm somewhere while they were sleeping. You know what happened. Now here's Turtle Van battle number 9. And yes, I know this one is a little weak, but Donatello does use the van to fire something at somebody. This is the van versus Leonardo. They find Leo, but he doesn't want to go home. He's happy, having fun. So Donatello decides to use the ultimate weapon, the net nabber. It shoots out of the roof, and Leonardo easily slices right through that thing. Not so ultimate now, is it, Donatello? Next, Leonardo throws a stink bomb into the van, and after the guys say it'll stink in the van for weeks, he blasts them with some fire hydrant water. Man. Later, they return with Splinter, who doesn't complain about the van stinking at all, and Splinter outskates Leonardo. Now Leonardo agrees to go home and, get turned back to normal. Next up is the episode, What's Michelangelo Good For? In this episode, Mikey needs to take Pigeon Pete to the zoo animal clinic before it closes, but the van breaks down. So Mike and the turtles continue on foot and make it there just in time. Afterwards, the guys work on the van. This top shot looks kind of like they didn't understand how the catapult works. Like it's just kind of springing out from the top. Like the catapult most of the times comes out of the inside of the van. I guess, well, it sort of does that, how it's shown here in one of the episodes, but, it's not a common feature. Mikey heads back to the zoo while the other 3 continue to work, and that's when they get captured by some robotic monkeys. Could they have picked a better spot for that? Anyway, here's a close-up of the van's pedal in this episode. Later on, Mikey returns home, and Splinter tells him that he senses something very bad happens to the other turtles. All right, they're in trouble. So Mikey heads to the van and finds it abandoned. This scene is just neat because you can actually look inside the hood. Just so you know, Mikey does end up saving the other turtles. Moving on, in the episode The Big Cufflink Caper, the guys search for cufflinks that are really explosives. At the same time, the gangster Big Louie is also looking for these exploding cufflinks. Now, if you look at this shot in the van, this one's actually very interesting and very different because here, all 4 seats are separated, and it shows like the shifter, the gear shift on and an armrest. This is very different. Not model at all. And looky here, Mikey is wearing a seatbelt. You don't see that very often in the cartoon. Later, Donatello uses a microscope in the back of the van to analyze a cufflink, but I don't think that's supposed to be any turtle van microscope. I think it's just kind of something they put in here. And here's some different seats and some more different seating, as well as the shredder on the boob tube. In the episode Raphael Drives Him Wild, a device called a transmogrifier switches Raphael's brain with Oscar, the taxi driver's brain. Here you can see Raph is Oscar driving the van. Donatello analyzes the transmogrifier blueprints in the back of the van and learns that if they don't change Raphael back soon, they may just never be able to turn him back again. Isn't it just always the way? He says that it's going to blow up. Donatello does eventually figure out how to dismantle the transmogrifier, and after a cool chase scene that features Raph as Oscar driving the van, Oscar's Raph driving a taxi, April driving her Channel 6 news van, and the pint-sized mobster, Mr. Big, riding in a limo. All 4 vehicles get into a massive head-on collision. So that's some damage for the turtle van. And during that crash, Raph and Oscar turn back to normal, And Donatello says that the way to disarm the transmogrifier was to crush it. Simple. And beyond the Donatello Turtle Nebula, Donatello tries to contact the Turtle Nebula. The other guys don't take him very serious, and they pull a practical joke on him, which, upsets him and gets him to leave the lair. He heads to the roof of the Channel 6 news building, where he's able to hook up his equipment and pull an alien to our world. The alien, Algae. Now, I like this guy. I think he's got a cool design, and I would be perfectly fine if NECA decided to produce him. I would be happy to put him on my shelf next to my other figures. So back at the lair, the other three guys see some unusual happenings on Channel 6 News. Well, not really unusual for Channel 6 News. I mean, come on. There's always some crazy shit happening all day long. So they take the van to check out what's up. When the guys show up to Channel 6, they see that it's surrounded by cops. So Mikey has to pull out a disguise in order to get in. Now, this is cool because if you look here, it looks like they have like different drawers for different disguise stuff, right? He pulls the jacket out of the bottom here, and then there's also like this drawer that specifically says masks. It really makes you wonder what other cool stuff they have crammed in this van that you never see. So Mikey fails to get in, of course, because he's dressed up like a McGruff. I also do got to point out that it looks like these cops are driving taxis. And also there's a TV above their heads in the front of the van. And also this episode is filled with a lot of paint mistakes. Here's Donatello as Michelangelo hanging out with Algae. In the identified Leonardo, Leo drives the van out to the sticks to look for UFOs. Instead, he finds a disco helicopter and some giant vegetables. At the end of this episode, he rides the blimp home. Is the van still in the cornfield somewhere? Is it on autopilot to go back home? What happened to the van? And Michelangelo meets Bugman. Michelangelo meets Bugman. Yeah. Bugman is Michelangelo's favorite comic book superhero. Michelangelo just found him floating in some sewer water, wrapped up in a Listenite chain. Listenite is Bugman's one weakness. So after Mikey quickly throws that Listenite chain away, Bugman fills him in on his superhero origin and also tells him that he recently took a beating by the electrifyingly evil Electro Zapper. That's when Mikey gets the best idea of all, because Bugman is his favorite superhero, so he offers to help him defeat the nefarious foe once and for all. Bugman power and turtle power, together at last! So Mikey and Bugman decide to take the turtle van. Bugman can't fly because, as I said, he's still weak from the Listenite chain. And this scene is notable for a few reasons, all right? First, that wall behind them has a rollover door. That matches the design and style that we saw in Raphael Knocks 'Em Dead. They really make a point to say safety belts on. They barely do that in any other episodes. And finally, when they leave the garage, the van is pushed off by a giant spring. And the van exits this giant pipe. This it's the only time in the cartoon throughout the whole series that this spring is shown, all right? So it's kind of cool, but it's the only time you ever see that I've found. All right. And here you can see them driving through the sewers. And this is where they exit the sewers in this episode. Now, I assume that, this pipe is closer to Electro Zapper's lair than the standard grate. Mikey and Bugman reach Electro Zapper's lair where they find April. And that's really all there is with the van in this episode. Now, the final episode of Season 4, The Turtles and the Hare. In this episode, the Turtles use the van to transport some Easter eggs to the Channel 6 news building. This is one of those episodes that was obviously animated by, the D-list animation studios, because the animation is lower quality than, some of the better episodes. But because of that, it offers some interesting and different van background designs, all right? So, take a look at the ceiling in the van here. that looks pretty cool. It's all nicely painted and everything. I think this one shot right here is the only time where you can see the van seat in full from top to bottom. And then the only other major thing to mention from this episode is Donatello shrinks the portable portal generator to its portable size, and he loads it onto the turtle van. Now, they never actually drive the portal somewhere in the van because they turn it on while it's sitting in the garage to bring Leonardo, Raphael, and Hokum Hair to our dimension. They do drive the van to the microwave transmission center to stop the shredder in this episode, but that's really it. It just kind of ends with them standing outside the van and Hokum filling in for the Easter Bunny. Now, on to Season 5. Out of 19 episodes, I found 13 of them to feature the Turtle Van. In My Brother the Bad Guy, the guys team up with Uroku Saki's police officer brother, Kazuo Saki. Here he is, driving around with the guys. Lieutenant Saki is very by the books. He won't even let the guys speed. He even steps on Leo's brakes for him, which, I gotta say, you don't do that to another man, all right? But he does this to stop at a red light. Worst of all, because of this, he lets the Shredder get away. Maybe the Shredder continues to dishonor your family because you won't do what is necessary to stop him, all right? In Enter Mutagen Man, the episode begins with the guys taking a close look at a rocket that's going on a 4-year mission to explore the surface of Venus. Once they get spotted by some security guards, the turtles jump in the turtle van and head home. That's it. Next up, Donatello's Bad Time. This is like a Turtle Van main event episode after nearly 100 episodes. As this episode begins, the guys comment on Donatello spending too much time working on the Turtle Van. He's been spending night and day in the garage for the past 2 weeks. If you were curious, this is the episode where NECA got the van garage sign when they were teasing the release of the van. Inside, Donatello's been working on some new additions for the Turtle Van. I think it's funny that the spare tire opens to reveal the engine. Like, that just seems a little weird. Donatello uses this remote to show Splinter the new van disguise. Man, Don, very convincing. Just hopefully they'll ignore the blasters on the roof and the Ninja Turtle sign on the front of the van. But this is a very cool scene inside the Turtle Van garage. After this, Donatello takes the van out for a test drive, and he tests out its skinny van mechanism. The van passes, but then Donnie almost crashes into the Bad family. Now, wouldn't it be funny if in the future NECA decided to release a skinny version of the van? $300. You'd buy it, right? Donatello doesn't think much of accidentally hitting the Bad family, but later on in the episode, he encounters them again after their truck has broken down. Donatello, being the upstanding guy that he is, he offers a little friendly assistance. And that's when the Bad Gang shove him into the hood of their broken down POS truck and steal the Ninja Turtle van. Man, can you believe that? Now here, in this episode, is Turtle Van Battle number 10. The van versus the good guys, because now Donatello has to get the van back. And the Bad family have all the van's weaponry at their disposal. This is a pretty cool one. As soon as the Bads start driving, one of them accidentally pushes the super speed button. They almost get pulled over by the cops, but one of the hillbillies turns on the smoke screen. Then the same guy sees this button blinking, so he pushes it, and that releases a turtle parachute. And now their speed streak is over. Back at the lair, Donatello fixes the Bad truck, and he also soups it up with some new gizmos. Here you can see him driving that piece of crap Bad truck out of the sewer grate that leads to the sewer lair. While in the van, the Bad Gang see this diamond on television. This diamond powers the Power Sizer, which is a device that can provide more power than the sun, but it also could be dangerous beyond human comprehension. And of course, they decide that they need to steal that diamond. Check out the Turtle Van Dasher. All those details look pretty cool. And I really like the turtle emblem on the horn. There's also a weird thing in this episode where they mirror the image. So at one point, Mrs. Bad is driving on the left side of the van, and then in another shot, she's driving on the right side of the van, and the background just switches. They didn't even, I don't know, they must have like a design for the other side of the van that doesn't feature the scanner, but they barely show it. You almost always see just the scanner side in all of these episodes. So the bad gang steal the diamond, as well as the power sizer, which is, a bad situation. During their getaway, they nearly run over Mikey, Leo, and Raph, who mistake them as Donatello. And I gotta say, Donnie made this ice cream disguise to fool people into thinking that it's a different type of vehicle, but the turtles recognize it right away, right? They're not fooled for a second. So the guy's called Don, and Don is too embarrassed to admit that he lost control of the van, so he lies and says that he's still driving it, which, obviously makes him look bad. Leo asks Don if he knows anything about the Power Saver Diamond, but Donnie says to butt out. In the van, Bubba Bad tries to remove the diamond, but he's having a little bit of a hard time, and he accidentally turns it on. Because the device isn't correctly calibrated, it starts to drain all of the city's power. So everything in this episode leads up to this very exciting chase scene where Donatello has to battle his own baby. Bedelia Bad hits defense number 2, which launches a smokescreen. Don counters with a vacuum. The other 3 turtles jump on the van. Bedelia hits a button that ejects them from the top, which I guess sort of makes it seem more like the catapult that was seen in What's Michelangelo Good For? I don't really count this as a regular turtle van catapult because it's just different. I don't know, maybe it's just me. What do you think? Luckily, they land on the back of Donnie's truck, safe and sound. Next up, one of the bad boys hits defense number 4, which launches a hand that tosses mud missiles. Donatello counters with a shield. Finally, Bedelia turns the van around to crash into Don's truck head on. So Don sprays ice cubes on the road, which freezes the ground and causes the van to spin out. In one final attempt to win, one of the bads pushes a button, which turns out to be the ejector arms. I made that name up, right? And that's it, There's a lot of great Turtle Van reference in this episode, as well as a lot of really cool Turtle Van doohickeys and gizmos. It would have been really awesome if they could have included more of this stuff in, more episodes, since the Turtle Van was such a huge part of the Ninja Turtle lore back in the day. And Michelangelo meets Bugman again. Mikey drives the Turtle Van to visit Bugman at the Happy Vale Meditation Center. Not only does he visit him, he also grabs and kidnaps him so he can take him to help him fight the Swatter. The Swatter is this kind of funny Shredder wannabe. So Bugman has been training himself to be happy, so he hasn't been transforming into, the mutated version of Bugman. Mikey tries to make Bugman mad enough to transform into his superhero form, but because of his training at the Happy Vale Meditation Center, Bugman's become a very mellow fellow. The only one who can tick him off is April, when she starts to make personal digs at his clothes. Man, that'd make me mad too. And Muckman messes up. The guys use the van to run from the press. Later on, they exit the grate. I honestly may like the background and van art the best out of all these great scenes. There's just something about it that looks pretty cool. Then later on, Donatello uses the scanner to track Irma and April. I never noticed this before, but don't you think Smogzilla versus the hairy ape looks kind of like Baby Son versus Jocko? In Napoleon Bonafrog, Colossus of the Swamps, Donatello tells the guys that he installed a few new goodies into the turtle van. With the push of a button, he can turn on hovercraft capabilities. Now, unfortunately, this doesn't last very long, but it's still cool that he's adding new abilities to the van. April contacts the guys on the van's TV. She warns them an earth tremor is heading their way. The lair shakes, and Donnie's early warning system shows that it's the Shredder in a module. That doesn't really come up that much, that the modules are creating earthquakes throughout the city. Later on in the episode, the Turtles use the van to search for the punk frog, Napoleon, who's been turned into a giant colossus by the Shredder, but they fail. Even after April tips the guys off, Big Louie finds him after he's shrunk down to normal size. Not only are these two parties after him, but the Shredder is also on Napoleon's tail and riding after Big Louie in a taxi. As everybody reaches Big Louie's hideout, Napoleon turns back into a Hulk, and the Shredder takes control of him with the Mutashooter. Donatello tries to appeal to Napoleon's good guy side, but Bebop and Rocksteady kidnap him, and Shredder commands Napoleon to bury the turtle van under a mountain of crates. Mikey tries to use Donatello's latest invention, but he accidentally hits the smokescreen button, which smokes the guys out. The only way the guys are able to escape is April shows up and digs them out with a forklift. All right, April. Now finally, the tables have turned and she is the superhero. In Donatello's duplicate, the Turtles use the van to track down Donatello's clone. Man, look at the dash here. Donnie's digital feedback scanner can't handle two Donatellos at once, so it thinks the real Don and the clone Don are one and the same. You know, it only picks up Don's signal within the van itself. In Pirate Radio, the Shredder is using the Wolf radio station, WOOF, to control the minds of its many listeners. One of those listeners just happens to be Michelangelo. So the guys use the van to search for Michelangelo. What else is new? They find out that Mikey's heading towards Krang's chasm because Krang contacts them in the van using Zoom. Does he have the Turtles' number on speed dial or something? Like, how did he hone in onto their location? So later on, April is also mind controlled by these radio waves, but the guys snap her out of it, save her from walking to an early death, and now April is driving around with them, also looking for Michelangelo and Irma. Why aren't the guys affected by the WOOF radio station signals? Well, because they're wearing white noise earplugs. In order to stop Krang and the Shredder, they have to travel out to the Wolf radio station, which is out on a boat. How do they get there? Well, Donatello turns the van into a water-riding hovercraft. We, of course, have seen this before in, 20,000 Leagues Under the City and stuff like that, but it's just always cool to see him turn the van into some other type of vehicle. When they get near the ship, Donatello's computers tell him that the mind control signal is made by a ventriloquator. He's able to turn a dial inside of the van to reverse its effects. Finally, the guys use the van to save Mikey and Irma from heading into Krang's chasm. This scene is cool too, you know? I just like all this. The van out in the water, them using the rope to pull them in. It's all good. In Raphael, Turtle of 1,000 Faces, the guys chase after Mad Dog McMutt because at first they believe he's Raphael in disguise, but once they find out that he's not Raphael in disguise, they think that he will lead them to Raphael, all right? So they chase after him in the van. Later on, you get to see the Turtle Van dish spin around as they try to track April's TurtleCom. Man, how many times does that happen? In Leonardo, Renaissance Turtle, Donnie again tracks April's TurtleCom. In Zack and the Alien Invaders, the guys ride in the van and discuss how Zack's recently become a Fruit Loop, seeing aliens in places where they aren't, you know? He keeps on going after blue-collared workers. Later on, after Zach's parents get sick of him and send him to a military school, Zach actually does learn that aliens are, in fact, here on Earth. He calls the guys who are, a little weary of his story, but Leo decides to send Donatello and Mikey to check him out. At the door, the guys meet Wingnut, who's disguised as a human, and he tells them to go away, but Donnie knows that something's wrong. So he drives the van to the back, and for the first time in forever, they use the catapult to shoot themselves over the wall. Over one wall and into another. It's really nice to see them use the catapult again, even though the mechanism is pretty different than how it originally appeared. I think in the opening and Hot Rodding Teenagers from Dimension X, the turtle launcher is just the floor of the van, springing up and shooting them into the air. Here, it's like a real catapult. In Welcome Back Polarisoids, the guys take Fripp the Polarisoid out in the van on a quest to find his camera. Shredder has it, of course. Here you can see the great exit. The inside shots are pretty typical, but nice. This is a good episode because finally we have another Turtle Van battle. Turtle Van battle number 11. The van versus the robot garbage truck. Again, a robot garbage truck? On the way, Donnie's computers tell him Krang's breaking into the city's computer systems and taking control, including the giant robotic garbage trucks. This massive garbage truck grabs and lifts the turtle van into the air. As it's about to drop the van into the giant trash compactor, Donatello interfaces with the truck's computer system. I really like the equipment here that never shows up again anywhere else in the series. The post-it notes are, a nice touch, gotta say. Anyway, Donatello gets the truck to drop the van, and it lands on a mattress truck. This shot is weird because the animation of the truck and the van aren't synced together properly. So this leads to Turtle Van battle number 12. 2 battles in the same episode? Yes. 2 battles. Can you believe that? This is the van versus the cataclysmic canyons of the Vulcan moon. I know that sounds weird, but in this episode, Fripp's video camera can unleash things onto the Earth that he shot, on different planets. Here, the Shredder used Fripp's camera to unleash some mini volcanoes and lava monsters onto the Earth. Donatello opens up the headlights, which reveals some guns that blast water at the lava. That's pretty cool. And then next he uses the top blasters to melt the lava monsters with water. It's a very short battle, but it's exciting, and it's just kind of nice to see the blasters in use, even though they're not shooting lasers. It's cool that he can switch it to a different form of ammunition, I guess. Later on in this episode, the guys and Fripp save Fripp's wife, Millimeter, who's riding on a runaway train. And I love this shot here where Raph jumps from the van onto the train. That's all cool. I would have loved to have seen more of this throughout the series. Next, the Shredder shoots the van with some footage that Fripp took at the Floatarian dimension. This causes the van to fly up in the air, so Donatello has to use the van's underside grappling hook. On this week's episode of My 3 Leonardos, when Fripp finally gains control of his camera, he shuts it off, and that drops the van down to the ground. Inside of the van, Donatello uses his computers to break Krang's computer code, which overloads his computers. And this episode ends with the guys driving the van, and Fripp accidentally unleashes the Zog Beast from the Jungleoid dimension. That runs after the Shredder and Bebop and Rocksteady. And that thing looks a lot like Gorgonzola, I think. In Michelangelo, the Sacred Turtle, Mikey rides the van to the Natural History Museum, and then later on, the rest of the guys ride it to the Old World's fair site. And that is it. Now, on to Season 6. In this season, I found 7 out of 17 episodes to feature the Turtle Van. Thank goodness. In Rock Around the Block, as April's about to fall to her certain death, Mikey, yes, that's Mikey, throws his grappling hook onto her bumper, and then Dawn backs up the van to pull her to safety. As Trag's rocks terrorize the city, the guys duck into the van looking for cover. They drive the van to look for the origin of the rock assault, and that's when they find General Trag. Instead of blasting him with all those Turtle Van weapons, they decide instead to fight him one-on-one with their weapons. And, because he is a creature made out of solid rock, his skin smashes all of their weaponry. April, being the team player that she is, decides to take the Turtle Van to Channel 6 so she can get her scoop instead of, shooting General Trag with any of the blasters. I think this shot right here is hilarious because when the van drives by Trag, they screwed up the perspective, right? It should be a lot bigger than him because it's in the foreground. Trag sends his giant rock monster after April, which leads to an amazing scene where that giant rock monster pounds on the Channel 6 building. That alone makes this episode a worthwhile watch. In Super Irma, the guys ride the Turtle Van all the way down to the Technodrome at the bottom of the ocean. How do they manage to do that? Well, Donatello pushes a button to convert the van into submarine mode. Now that's pretty cool. There's even a periscope on top of the van. I love that. In order to get inside the metallic marvel, Donnie launches a turtle torpedo, and the point hits a button that opens up this hatch. I was kind of hoping it would blow up and, the van would kind of get sucked in there or whatever, but whatever. Now, in this episode, all of this leads to a very cool battle between the guys and Krang. Those are actually pretty rare throughout the series, so, check this one out if you want to see something cool. And here is the van leaving the Technodrome. In Shrika's revenge, the guys speed in the van to warn April that Shrika's on her tail. Again, Donatello uses his scanner to track her. Seems like all Donatello does is sit back there at his scanner. Now stop watching TV and do something productive. In Too Hot to Handle, Donatello warns the other turtles that Vernon's super annoying nephew Foster has erected an extremely dangerous invention. A solar magnet that's pulling the Earth closer to the sun. As if I didn't hate that kid enough already. Some of these later shots in this episode are pretty interesting. There's a new ceiling. Here's a nice over-the-shoulder background. I like how all the turtles wear their seatbelts on chairs with wheels. Dude, if Mikey crashes the van, you and that chair are going right through the window. Eventually, the evil scientist Philo Sopho, my goodness, steals Foster's magnet and he turns up the heat. It gets so hot, the road melts, and no matter how hard Mikey pushes on the gas, the van starts to drag. Luckily, Donatello installed instant freeze spray jets. Now the road solidifies and the turtles get on with their adventure. And then later on, they sort of get attacked by popcorn, I guess. And Leonardo is missing. The other three guys look for Leo, but without the homing signal in his turtle comm, Donnie can't get a fix on him. I like when the other three turtles search for Leonardo, and one of them keeps turning into Leonardo. Oh, there you are. Oh, wait, it's Michelangelo. In Polly Wants a Pizza, the turtles use the van to follow Ditto the Parrot to rescue Michelangelo, but then Muggsy McGuffin nabs him. It doesn't matter, because everybody knows they're all heading to the same place, the Bearing Arms Hotel, which is set to blow sky high. Will the other turtles get there in time to save Michelangelo? Of course they do. And then as the building blows, they hide behind the van. The final episode of Season 6 to feature the van is the episode Sleuth on the Loose. In this episode, 3 of the guys show up in the van to save Raph and April's Aunt Aggie from some giant robot, They don't use the van weapons at all, or even try to hit the robot with the van. They just kind of jump out of the van as soon as they get there. Now on to Season 7. Season 7, of course, is made up of 2 different parts. The first half is the European vacation episodes, and the second half I like to think of as Season 7 proper, right? Because the European vacation episodes, I believe, were supposed to take place after Plan 6 from Outer Space, which is in the middle of Season 4. But for whatever reason, they didn't get broadcasted until the same year as Season 7 proper. And, the animation quality of the European vacation episodes matches more of Seasons 3 and 4, and the animation quality of the real Season 7 looks like a continuation of Seasons 5 and 6, where the animation, I think, became a little tighter. Not perfect, but it's definitely tighter. They definitely had a more cohesive look from episode to episode. So out of 27 episodes, I found 17 to feature the Turtle Van. 9 of those episodes are in the European vacation episodes, and 8 are in the second half of Season 7. In the first vacation episode, Tower of Power, somehow the Turtle Van is with the guys in the sewers of Paris. I don't know how it got there, because I believe they arrived in Europe on a boat. They never show them load the van onto the boat. There actually is an episode later on where they show the van being transported, which is pretty interesting. We'll get there in a little bit. But on to Rust Never Sleeps. In this episode, the guys try to find April in Paris. Don uses these really off-model computers to try and get a signal from her turtle comm, but he's having some trouble. He tells the guys to head to the Eiffel Tower so he can use the iron to get a better signal. When they arrive, Bebop and Rocksteady shoot the van with the Rust Encruster, which rusts the van dead in its tracks. The guys fly through the window, and I just love the looks on their faces, especially Michelangelo. He looks terrified. And, this, of course, goes to show you, kiddies, you gotta wear your seatbelts. After they battle Bebop and Rocksteady, Donnie reverses the polarity of the Rust Encruster, and he uses that to zap the van back to normal. In a real snow job, and I love this one because I'm a huge fan of snow, Donnie converts the van into a snowmobile so the guys can ride safely on the Austrian Alps. Inside the van, Mikey uses this pizza oven to cook himself a pizza. I'm honestly surprised that this is the first time this was used in the show, Not only is it cool that, they have the hole in the wall behind the front seats, like it should have always been, but it's cool to see, like, one of those devices on the wall actually do something, You would think that this would be like an episode staple, like they would do this in every single episode. When the Turtles get close to their destination, Splinter heads off on his own, and the guys leave the van and travel to Lichtenbrook on skis. Later on in the episode, the Turtles ride in the van to track Bebop and Rocksteady's tracks in the snow. They have a radar dish going that's completely brand new. With the radar, Donatello picks up zoetropic waves, which Krang is using to get rid of the ozone layer. I think this shot is kind of funny because, I never would think it before, but it looks like Donatello's scanner or computer controls are like ladder bits. Another cool added item here is as the snow gets thicker, Leonardo hits a button which brings up a periscope. With the periscope, he's able to see Shredder's hideouts, and as they get close to Shredder's, they drive the van off a ledge, which sends them down a ramp and up in the air. Donatello is able to save the day with the Turtle Van parachutes. But, nothing's ever easy. The guys land on some ice, and the ice cracks. Mikey almost falls to his death, but he's able to save himself, which is, good. I don't want Mikey to die. Back in the van, Mikey has some hot cocoa to, I guess, cheer himself up, and Donnie uses the parachute as a sail to get them off of the rift. Most disappointingly, this episode ends with the guys using the blimp to attack Shredder's base. Like, how the hell did they get that there? Has it been floating above them this entire episode? The entire season? If they brought the blimp to Europe, why'd they take a boat in the first place? It boggles the mind. But I like this episode a lot. I like Irma's boyfriend that turns out to be a robot, and I love all the cool shots inside the turtle van, and I love that they converted it into a snowmobile. I recommend this one. Sometimes people look down on the European vacation episodes, but I like this one a lot, actually. In Venice on a Half Shell, Donatello uses his TV computer to pick up a Dimension X portal. He can use this computer to detect what type of material Krang is sending to Earth, and with that, he deduces it's a molecular wave intensifier. Donatello then uses his machines to make a strong magnetic field to pull the device off course and to the turtle van. The magnetic field came out of this spinning doodad right here, this dish or whatever. Later on in the van, Donatello tries to trace the hydrofluxer signal, but picks up screaming Irma instead. I gotta say, I like Donnie's cool headphones in this episode. Those are pretty sweet. And now, the main event of the episode. Turtle Van Battle number 13. The van versus a living stone gargoyle. In this episode, the Shredder accidentally brings some gargoyles to life when his hydrofluxer goes out of control without the molecular wave intensifier to, I guess, stabilize it? As we just saw, the Ninja Turtles have the molecular wave intensifier. So the gargoyle picks up the van, Donnie drops the molecular wave intensifier, and then the gargoyle throws the van into the water. Take a look at this shot. They completely messed up the placement of these bits and pieces. Anyway, Don pulls this lever, and pontoons pop out of the bottom of the van, which makes it float on top of the water. So I guess I would consider that a conversion, some water riding. Donnie hits a switch to turn on the propellers, and off they go after Bebop and Rocksteady, who a little bit ago actually caught the molecular wave intensifier. Bebop and Rocksteady try to push some boats in their way, but Donatello sinks the van in the water and then brings it up in front of them. With the flick of a switch, the van creates a ramp, and Bebop and Rocksteady go soaring through the sky. In Artless, the guys arrive in Florence. Here, the inside of the van is all blue. Looks pretty neat. They turn on April's newscast and see footage of the famous Last Supper painting disappear. And here is some more interesting blue shots inside of the turtle van. I don't know. Sometimes they go off model with either the colors or the designs, but it just makes new interesting things to check out. Later on, the guys get attacked by some locals who think that they are the thieves, the art thieves. So April and Splinter have to save them. Now check this out. The guys have a VCR in the back of the van. They always show them watching movies in the sewer. Sometimes they should have shown them like driving around the city, and then two of the guys could have been in the back watching some B movies and goofing around while waiting to find the Shredder. In this episode, aliens are stealing artwork by Renaissance painters that April covers in her newscasts. These shots right here are just some that I wanted to include just because they're inside the van, and all it's really showing is the Turtles coming up with their next plan of action. The next episode, Ring of Fire, opens with the guys watching the Festival of the Bulls inside an olive warehouse along with the van. And then at the end of the episode, the van still remains in the warehouse. That's all for that one. In The Irish Jig is Up, the guys ride the van in Dublin. Looks pretty nice. They then ditch the van and explore Dublin on foot. And then they're back in the van to go to McGillicuddy Castle. So far, nothing too exciting in the van. Later on, Donatello uses his scanner to pinpoint where Shredder is using his latest invention. Where is he? The zoo. And, there's just some cool interior shots here. I like this one of Mikey driving. The seats look pretty good in this one. In this one, they're entering the castle. Ooh. And check this one out. The side door opens up completely different, kind of like a regular door. In April Gets in Dutch, the turtles arrive in Amsterdam, and the van is inside a giant crate. That's pretty cool. I'm okay with that. I don't know if that crate looks big enough to house that gigantic van, but, at least they're trying to explain how it's getting from one place to another. Raph apparently suggested the guys to do this as part of a bargain sea cruise. In this one, Mikey makes a pizza in an oven that's different than the one from A Real Snow Job. And, I guess just in general, the van looks completely off. Very off model, but very interesting. Later on, for the 100th time, Donatello tries to track April with the homing signal in her turtle comm. But he has to wait for her to turn it on. And here's just a few other shots of the van on the inside and on the outside. Eventually, the guys locate April at an old cheese factory. And then, even later than that, Donatello uses the scanner to detect some cheese. In Northern Lights, the guys use the van's antenna to watch April's satellite feed. April is interviewing Professor Svensson, and I like this shot of the guys drinking, and then them looking shocked as the professor says the energy locked in volcanic pools can be used for evil. I mean, come on, April, why do you gotta broadcast that shit all the time? Don't you know Krang watches every day? He never misses. It just seems like you're purposely asking to start a problem. This 3/4 view is pretty interesting. Like, it looks like there's cabinet doors on top of the van. So, in this episode, April gets kidnapped by some Vikings, and the guys try to stop them, but they're too late. Now, they abandon the van and chase after the Vikings by boat. And that's pretty much all you can say about the van, and that is the end of the European episodes. Now on to Season 7 proper. And finally, we have another Ninja Turtle van battle, because you have battle number 14, the Turtle Van versus the Triceratons. In the episode The Dark Turtle, the Triceratons land on Earth and start rounding up innocent citizens. The guys try to put a stop to it, but ultimately they get their shells kicked. So then they decide to pull out the turtle van, and oh my gosh, can you believe this? They drive towards the alien invaders, guns a-blazing. Yes, they actually use the roof cannons to blast at the Triceratons. It's amazing. Finally. I can't believe it took 7 years to get here, but finally we're here. But unfortunately, just like in Batman when the Batwing is shot down by the Joker, they don't hit any of the Triceratons, and then Zorax shoots the ground with his Triceraton laser cannon, and that pretty much puts the van out of commission for now. It's stuck in a hole. But don't worry, because after the commercial break, everyone in the van switches seats, and then Raph puts the van in reverse and backs up so they can go find Donatello, who's, thinks he's Batman in this one. I love this episode. You should check it out. In fact, all Season 7 episodes are pretty interesting. Except for maybe the Star Child, just because I can't stand his voice. In the episode The Star Child, Donatello tries to scan the area for the missing Star Child quarks. Donnie hopes he's putting out some kind of weird energy, but it doesn't matter because he overhears on the police scanner that the police have already found Quarks. Happy times are short-lived, however, because as the turtles approach the Star Child, he takes off again. So Raph and Dawn alone chase after him. Again, they find him, and then he bails again, right? So when the guys fail to retrieve him, Donatello's scanners pick up 4,000 blips heading towards Earth. What are they? They're a space army who are threatening to destroy the Earth if Earth doesn't surrender Quarks to them in 30 minutes. In Convicts from Dimension X, the guys find April on the streets after the convicts from Dimension X destroyed some of the city. And man, they really damaged the crap out of this thing. They abandon the vehicle to go check these creatures out because you're thinking, wow, these guys can level buildings, so, maybe my sword will be able to protect me. And not this futuristic van with all the weapons Donatello could think of. Seriously, why do they barely use the van's offensive capabilities? In White Belt Black Heart, April alerts the guys that the Black Heart gang has just broken into a jewelry warehouse, and worse than that, she also saw Shredder there. I like the backgrounds a lot in this season. They're very clean and crisp, almost like they sort of tightened up and got a little more professional. Here's an exciting Turtle Van ability. Leo drives down a street that's too narrow for oncoming traffic, and there's a large truck heading their way, right? So Donatello turns on the hydraulic lifts, and up in the air, the van goes. Safe from harm. Basically, in this episode, the guys are trying to find Yoku, who's in the Blackheart gang, so they can take him to his grandfather, Mogo-san. Mogo-san is one of Splinter's old mentors and one of his pals, One of my favorite parts in this episode is when April, her van gets a flat, and because they're trying to keep things hush-hush, they just abandon her there and leave in the van. I mean, geez, they could have at least called AAA or something. So they catch him, and they take him in the van, and that's really all that needs to be said about this one. In Attack of the Neutrinos, Krang and General Trag kidnap the Neutrinos and brainwash them to be little evil dudes and dudettes, right? So Krang unleashes them on the turtles. They attack the turtles first in the sewers, but more importantly, they attack them up on the surface. Now, I'm not sure if I should count this as a Turtle Van battle, but I guess I will, right? This is probably Turtle Van battle number 15 because the turtles actually used the side door blaster to try and shoot the evil joyriding neutrinos as they chase them through a mall. Now, it's a very short scene, but it is cool, and it is very neat that they're actually using that side door blaster. I mean, this is, the fourth or fifth time after all this time? It needs to be used more. In Dirk Savage, Mutant Hunter, after Leonardo and Mikey get abducted by Dirk Savage, Raph and Dawn try to track them with the scanner, but Savage wrecked their turtle comms, so they're unable to trace them. Seriously, Donatello, put one in the guy's belt. Later on, they use Mondo Gecko as bait, so he can get captured, and they can follow him to Dirk Savage's base. In Combat Land, Raph and Dawn drive quickly into Combat Land to look for Leonardo and Mikey, who I guess they're stuck in there like, man, that's 2 episodes in a row where it's Leo and Mikey. The guys get shot with lasers and arrows, but nothing hurts the van. At the very end of the episode, they use the van to escape Combat Land as it explodes. And now the final Season 7 episode, Shredder Triumphant. This is a great season finale, and this really could have been like the series finale if it didn't continue with 8, 9, and 10. This is an all-around good episode, but unfortunately the van is not really utilized. In this episode, they drive to the beach only to see the Technodrome drive onto the land. Man, you thought getting sand in your buns was bad? Could you imagine, laying on the beach and just seeing this gigantic Death Star on wheels drive up the shore. Like, good luck getting out of the way. Now, it would have been cool to see them drive the van, like, after the Technodrome, but they basically leave the van and use their ropes to enter the Technodrome. And that is all. All right, so now I finally feel like we're wrapping this thing up because we're getting on to Season 8, and the next 3 seasons, including this one, only consist of 8 episodes apiece, you know, so it's going to move pretty quickly from here on out. Not really, but I like to think it is. In this season, out of 8 episodes, I found 4 to include the turtle van. In Get Shredder, Krang and the Shredder try to steal some scientific equipment so they can get in touch with the Technodrome, which was banished to Dimension X at the end of Season 7. Krang suggests that the villains explore the Hall of Science Pavilion at the 1964 World's Fair in hopes of finding some 30-year-old science equipment. Pfft, yeah, like that's gonna work. The heroes find Krang's 1964 World Fair pamphlet as well as Bubble Walker tracks, so they deduct that that's where the Krang and Shredder must have gone. So they drive the van to the Hall of Science to confront the villains. Unknown to everybody, however, an alien named Berserker already hangs out in the hall and he starts to blast at everybody. During the onslaught of laser beams, Krang gets captured by Berserker and Raph gets hurt. The turtles load him onto the van, and this is interesting here because Leonardo pushes one of those blocks to open the door. You know, you had that one episode way back when where Donatello pushed like a little spot next to the door to open it. Most of the times people just grab onto the side or grab onto the top to pull it open. But here Leonardo was pushing one of those blocks. So then the guys speed off to the sewers, and they're driving way too fast. Berserker manages to shoot the van, and it causes the van to flip over onto its side. Now, the turtles have to retreat to the sewers without the van. Bummer. So as this episode goes along, the dude Berserker actually turns out to be one of Krang's old frenemies named Dracus. He actually helped Krang design the Technodrome, and then Krang double-crossed him, of course, you know? The Shredder actually thinks that the turtles are the ones who kidnapped Krang because Rocksteady says that Krang was the last time he saw Krang, he was kind of being grabbed by Donatello. And man, gross. Like, he's got to be all squishy and gross. If I was Donatello, I would not be doing that. But, you know, the Shredder doesn't know that Dracus actually has Krang. So the Shredder contacts the Ninja Turtles, and he threatens to blow up the Channel 6 news building unless they give him back in 30 minutes. So, first, the guys turn the van back upside onto its tires. Donatello tries to fix the van, while the other 3 heroes go to the Hall of Science to retrieve Krang. This episode is really cool, and I don't want to get into too much of it because, you know, this is supposed to be about the turtle van, and maybe they'll release Berserker or Dracus in the future. But all you really need to know is the guys rescue Krang. They put him in the van, which is, I mean, that's gross, man. Like, he's probably getting goop and grossness everywhere. And then they rush him to the Channel 6 building with 1 minute to spare, but the Shredder decides to blow up the building anyway to prove that he never bluffs. What a son of a... In Wrath of the Rat King, Donatello gets some strong energy readings from a pavilion. On the way to the pavilion, Bebop and Rocksteady catapult some explosives at the van. Even worse than that, these are like heat-seeking explosives, which is pretty cool. You have a little cool chase scene here. But seriously, these seasons are strange, you know? They're just kind of weird looking compared to the earlier ones. It just changed so much, but here's a pretty cool looking shot of the van. The van also shows up in the episode State of Shock. They actually use the van to transport a bomb to a secure location. Now, this is pretty cool because Donatello puts this bomb into this thing right here, and then a cannon pops out of the top of the van, which shoots the bomb up into the air so it can explode safe from harm. I still feel like this would be doing some damage. I mean, it's not really that high up there. And, like, was it really that threatening if it only created that small of an explosion? Maybe I'm overthinking of it. The van is shown next in the beginning of Enter Crackus, but they don't do anything with it. And then they drive the van to a bunker that contains a device known as a flux transformer. I think the most significant thing here is one of Titan's mutants knocks the van over at the end. And then somehow the van is right side up after they push Titan into one of these portals. That's the other thing. The van takes a beating during these last 3 seasons. On to season 9. Out of 8 episodes, 7 of them featured the turtle van. So they're really upping the van ante here. And the van gets it worst of all in these episodes. Really takes a beating. In The Unknown Mutant, the dudes meet the new Kino, Carter, and Lord Dreg comes to Earth. After April alerts the turtles that there's an attack on the Cop Core building by the Intimidator's brand new crime-fighting robots. That's a mouthful. The turtles drive the van to see what's up. It's nice to see in season 9, they were still trying to make the van look like it appeared, all the way back in season 1 with the ladder wall and stuff like that. And they were still making the mistake of leaving that wall, completely open in other shots. In Wrath of Medusa, the guys try to tell Carter to lighten up outside of the van. Then they get a call from Medusa, who tells them to meet her at the World Broadcast Tower in 30 minutes. I forgot to mention, but she's kidnapped Leonardo in this episode. And man, Medusa has such a 90s looking outfit, It's like what they thought was cool in the 90s, but not what kids actually thought was cool in the 90s. Later on, Donatello's computers pick up some weird energy readings, which turn out to be Medusa's ship. The guys speculate that Medusa is purposefully giving off that energy to lure the turtles into a trap. Of course she is. I love how April calls Raph here, and Raph in the Red Sky episodes is a little different. He is more of 90s movie Raphael. He's got a little more attitude, and he's just really rude to April. He's like, "Ugh, what now, April?" So the guys head towards the signal so they can find Leo, and of course, as I said, it's a trap. In The New Mutation, the guys ride the van as Carter uses Donatello's new techno tracker to look for techno gangsters. After the guys end up at Hyperdyne Chemical, there's a little fight, and then the heroes run from the cops. Back in the turtle van, Carter demutates, and the guys discuss how Dreg has tricked society into thinking he's some sort of benefactor. The inside of the van in these later seasons can be a little interesting because even though they kept some of the same designs like Donatello's scanner and like the side door gun, I think they streamlined the backgrounds a bit, kind of made them a little sterile and a little square or something. And then, some of the other backgrounds inside the vans just look like sheet metal welded together, not very exciting, just the bare minimum. Later on in the episode, the turtles use the van to lead a monster to some Zentronium to stop the monster from growing in size. Now, right here is the weirdest use of the catapult, but I'm glad it exists, right? Because here, they just open up the sunroof, and Mikey gets shot out of the top of the van that way. He's lucky he didn't stick his arm out a little bit and get nipped by the side. In the episode The Showdown, the turtle van shows up just so the guys can follow Carter to his lab. This episode is hilarious because Carter's enemy, Jet, is voiced by Robbie Rist, the voice of Michelangelo in the old Turtle movies. And even this more monstrous character, he's also the voice of him. And you could still just tell that it's him. But, it's just cool that he was included in this episode. Later on in the episode, Donatello alters his techno tracker to follow the vehicle of some dude who transported Leonardo and Mikey to an asteroid on the other side of the galaxy. In split second, the turtles face a new threat named Kronos. He's pretty much a ripoff of the Riddler and the Claw King. At one point, he leaves a clock in the van that tips him off to his next scheme. The van looks pretty cool here. There's a threat that the clock might be a bomb, but then it isn't. Just a trick. Later on, the guys ride around trying to figure out who Kronos really is. And here's just some, nice inside shots of the van. Here's the seatbelt. Wow. And the pedal. Double wow. They drive a lot in this episode, but they don't use any of the van's gizmos or gadgets or anything. Kind of bummer. And here's just a few other shots of the van on the outside. And again, some more on the inside, including this one where Carter's holding the clock by the back doors. I don't know. There's not much to say. It's just kind of cool to include all these different shots. In Carter, the Enforcer, the guys run from some cops with funny-looking weapons. The guys enter the sewers in a brand new way. I don't think this was like their new entrance or anything like that. They had to duck into here, quickly to run and hide. And then, of course, there's just some more interesting shots. Some Season 9 shots. All right, so now on to Doom Quest. And this whole episode is like Turtle Van Battle number 16. This one, the van really takes a beating. In this one, it's like the Turtle Van versus Dreg and his minions, and Doom Quest and his minions. So in this episode, the guys run over some of Dreg's minions. Dreg introduces a vortex crystal to Earth, which will allow him to bring his entire armada to our planet. He tricks some silly politicians into powering it. Donatello uses his van's computers to study it at a distance, and all he really learns is that it's not a power source. Later on, the heroes steal the crystal, even though they still don't know what it is. I forgot to mention this earlier, but in these later seasons, the turtles mutate into like monsters. And after Donatello came in contact with the crystal, it actually demutated him. So he thinks that the crystal has the power to demutate them from their, monstrous new forms. Carter believes that it affects space itself. An alien attacks them who's not one of Drake's men, but is one of Doomquest's men. And man, Doomquest is just a weird-looking guy. He looks like a mix of Vengeance and Hellraiser, I guess. I don't know. He's got the goofiest, weird-looking design. You could tell that they really thought he looked like a badass back then, but he does not. And I kind of feel like that black shape around his eyes and his forehead, maybe a little inappropriate. I don't know. I'm getting flashbacks to Little Mermaid. So Doomquest has a different purpose than Dreg. He wants to open a portal to the Dark Realm on Earth with the Vortex Crystal. All right, back to the action. This minion of Doomquest is named Draconis. Draconis rams the side of the van with his flying vehicle, and then knocks the van over onto its side. I always think it's cool to see footage like this with the van in a different state, especially with them like coming out the back doors and the van on its side. It kind of reminds you of when you were a kid and you were playing with your toys and you'd smash your vehicle over and, you'd have the guys climb out. I don't know. It just reminds me of that. Draconis manages to steal the Vortex Crystal. So Leonardo, Mikey, and Carter push the van right side up. They're pretty strong, And the chase is on. Now, here's a cool undershot of the van. And here's a cool one of everybody sitting in their seats. The turtles move quickly, but they're too late. Doomquest gets the Vortex Crystal, and he manages to open up a door. Now you have DoomQuest versus the van. But before that, here's another group shot inside the van. At one point, DoomQuest throws a rock at the van and it knocks off the back doors. I really love the shot where the guys are trying to drive away and the back doors are missing, and I imagine Donatello and Leonardo are holding on for dear life. It just looks cool because you can see like the ladder wall and everything. You just don't usually see that kind of stuff. Inside, Donatello's scanners pick up vortexes opening up all over the city. One of these vortexes releases creatures that blow fire, and one of them smashes the van's windows and knocks off the bumper. As I said, the van takes a beating here, Some of the siding falls off. Maybe that's the door, I'm not sure, but the guys keep using the van. There's one interesting shot here where the guys are looking at a TV screen or a computer monitor, and it's like they're sitting in front of a broken window. All right. The only windows in the van are the front windows. So what's going on here? Where's the steering wheel? Why is that monitor on the dashboard? In this scene, the van is practically broken down, and shortly after, it just completely breaks down and bits and pieces all fall off of it. This episode was the season 9 finale, and after all is said and done, the van looks like it's completely trash, You would think that this would be like an excuse for them to introduce some brand new, improved Turtle Van 2.0 in season 10. Then Playmates could make like some kind of new vehicle to sell to kids, but no. In season 10, the Turtle Van returns and it's back to normal. All right, season 10, we're finally at the end. Out of 8 episodes, I found 6 that include the Ninja Turtle van. In the season 10 opener, The Return of Dreg, Leonardo mutates to an even bigger, dumber monster than he has before, He takes off and shoves the van. So the rest of the guys drive after him. This scene takes place in the Ninja Turtle van garage. Here is the pedal in this episode. Soon after this, the Ninja Turtles catch up to Leonardo, and he immediately starts to beat the van with the lamppost. What the heck, man? Do you know how long it took Donnie to fix this thing up between seasons 9 and 10? Like, look how messed up the roof looks. Poor Donatello, I'm sure he tries to soup this thing up all the time so he can, drive through the city looking for mutated chicks and stuff like that. And it just always looks like a lemon. Could you ease up on the van? Anyway, later on, April calls the guys in the van, and look at that, cool, a TV screen. It's pretty nifty. Now, this one is on the dash, so it's kind of weird, but April gets captured, and of course, the guys drive the van to save her. In the beginning of the end, Leonardo mutates into an out-of-control beast again and again. The guys have to chase after him, just like the episode that we just watched. A second ago, Leonardo crashed through the wall, and now it's back to normal. All right? So here is the van leaving through the grate. It's been a while since we've seen them do that. At one point, they track Leonardo to a bridge, and Mikey ties him up. But before they can return the monster back home to the sewers, one of Dreg's shuttles shows up, and Dreg's men capture Leonardo. Can you believe that? And even worse than that, his men blast the back of the turtle van and cause some major damage to the back doors. Look at that. Dreg's shuttle takes off, but Carter suggests they go use the turtle van tracker to follow where the shuttle is heading. That's a pretty cool looking screen right there. Again, April calls the guys for help. There's some nice dash shots here, including Mikey using a keyboard and the internet. Near the end of the episode, Mikey and Raph drive after Dreg's shuttle, and instead of using the turtle launcher or catapult, Mikey throws up his grappling hook. Raph turns the van onto autopilot, and they both fly out the Ninja Turtle van window. In the episode A Turtle in Time, the heroes drive to a nuclear power plant, but something makes the bridge disappear, which drops the van onto a garbage ship. And that's it for that one. That was a short and easy one. In Mobster from Dimension X, Donnie picks up transporter energy with his scanner, so the guys go to make sure it's not Dreg returned to Earth. In actuality, it's the Globfather. The Globfather is this globby dude who can turn other dudes into globs. Right? That is disgusting. Seriously. Later on, the guys are searching for a kid that the Globfather is trying to find. The Globfather actually abducted his father, and he's trying to find something that the father hid on one of the son's toys. All right. If you look at this shot right here, that kid is riding the skateboard that the baby Ninja Turtles ride in Adventures in Turtle Sitting. Sometimes in these last 3 seasons, they repurposed some of the props from the earlier seasons. And, this scene when they're driving around is, I think, the only time I've ever seen where the baseball-shaped windows in the van are actually unpainted, so you can see the background go by the windows. That's what I assume those are supposed to be, like the windows on the actual Turtle Van toy. Even though if you ever look at the van in the cartoon, there are no windows on the outside of the van. That's something that they included in the very early seasons. The first time you ever see the van on the inside, you see those windows. But I don't know. I would assume that maybe they got confused and thought maybe they were TV screens, although they never ever actually used them as TV screens or anything like that. Even later on, the Globfather takes control of every phone line and computer connection in the world. Here's April's screen. As usual, she's calling the Ninja Turtles to get their help, of course. Leonardo figures that the only place the Globfather could link up to all the phone lines is the National Phone Switching Network. So Donnie decides to call him with the van's cell phone. Not a good idea, because now the Globfather is able to take control of the van. And holy crap, why is there a blaster that shoots inside of the van? I guess maybe you could count this one as Turtle Van Battle number 17, because this is sort of like the van battle with Omnis, all right? This is the Turtle Van versus the Globfather's control, all right? Because he takes control of the van, and this blaster comes out of the wall and starts shooting at the guys. First, it shoots out the back door of the van. And then he actually takes control of the roof blasters, and he blasts a tower. All right, that tower falls to the ground and, kind of knocks the Turtle Van around. So Mikey kind of loses control of the van. He starts smashing into some cars. So, there goes the Turtle Van paint job. And the only way that they're able to stop all of this is Raph uses his size to kill the van's computers. And, I guess I didn't really mention this, but the dashboard in this season has changed, right? Because you have that, that turtle screen or the turtle com shape on the front there that they were talking to April before. That's all brand new to this season. After all this, the turtles return home to the sewers in the van, and, the van is looking like it's in pretty poor shape. The next episode is The Day the Earth Disappeared, and here we have Turtle Van Battle number 18. The Turtle Van versus Dreg. All right. Now this one is kind of funny, and because the guys tricked Dreg into thinking that he destroyed them, but in reality, he only destroyed I can't remember what Leonardo says. He says like super realistic holograms of them or something like that, right? But seriously, these holograms are able to pull weapons out of Drake's minions' hands and also hit them. Right? When the holograms get destroyed, they get blasted with some kind of goop that makes them hard, and then Drake comes with a different device that he uses to blow them up. So I guess they are like solid holograms. I don't know. It's weird. But anyways, after Drake thinks that he destroyed the turtles, the real turtles show up, and Raph, who's peeking his head out of the sunroof, actually blasts the blasters at the Drake and his minions. He doesn't hit anyone, of course, and when they stop the van, he points the blasters right at Drake's face. But he gives Drake enough time to call his ship to be beamed away. Like, seriously, just blow that son of a bitch's head right off of his shoulders, okay? This would have solved a lot of problems. All right, and now we've made it to the final episode of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Divide and Conquer. In this episode, the guys drive the van while discussing the rough week that they've had. They've been randomly getting attacked by aliens. And that's when Mikey discovers a tracking device in his shell. And I think this shot is kind of funny too, because you don't see like the back of the... It's like you're seeing the whole back of Mikey, like you're seeing through the back seat, it's weird. Mikey tosses it out the window, but it's too late. Another alien transports into the van, and this lady is a shapeshifter. And I gotta say that this is one of the coolest Ninja Turtle van scenes of all time. It's the last episode, and trust me, it was worth it to get to this point because this is fantastic. First, this alien pulls out a gun and she starts to blast at the turtles within the turtle van, all right? She blows out the windows and she almost takes Mikey's head off with this thing until Donatello is able to knock it out of her hands with his wooden bow. Now, you'd think that, all right, she's disarmed, right? Well, no. She turns her arm into a chain, and then she uses that chain to grab Leonardo and Donatello. Now, she doesn't really do too much with this, but what happens next is super fantastic and awesome, all right? Because she turns into this crazy alien rhino-looking thing, right? And then she rams her horn into the 2 rows of seats. Now, I love this because, first, it's just cool to see a nice battle inside of the van, with all the damage to the seats and everything and the windows and whatnot. You get a nice sense of danger and everything. I don't know. It's just very exciting to see. The other thing is I love the camera angles in this scene because you get to see the van, well, the inside of the van, at different perspectives and different angles. So in the midst of this battle, Mikey accidentally drives the van off the side of the road, all right? This alien steals the bow to prove that the Ninja Turtles are dead, and she transports out of there. Now, as soon as she leaves, the guys deploy the parachutes, and that saves them, Now, you would think that this would be the end of the van in this episode, but no, it's not. Later on, Raph and Leo go to April's apartment to save her from Dreg. And this leads to Turtle Van Battle number 19, all right? This one should be really exciting, but it's, I don't know, I guess a little bit of a letdown. Just the battle, not the whole end of this episode, just the Turtle Van Battle, because this is the van versus Lord Dreg in his microbot suit. The microbot suit gives Lord Dreg the power of these aliens that he absorbed, right? I guess he kills them, like he absorbed them into the actual suit and uses their powers now. So as this scene opens, Dreg turns into a motorcycle-looking thing, and he drives after the van, right? So you have an exciting turtle van chase here, where he's coming after them and he's blasting at them, and Leonardo is in the side chair blasting back at him. That is really cool. That's only happened in what? Turtles Everywhere, when the garbage truck was following after them and Donatello shot back at it. After this, the van enters a junkyard and the exciting chase scene is over. Now Dreg grabs the van with a giant magnet and he lifts it up because he's going to, drop it into the trash compactor and turn it into a cube. Luckily, the turtle van is not completely destroyed because Mikey and Don show up in Krang's old android body, and a very cool battle takes place between Dreg and Mikey and Donnie in the android body. All right. What's interesting here is Leonardo breaks a sword trying to open up the doors, but they won't budge because the magnet is jamming them, keeping them closed. While the van is up in the air, the trash compactor actually smashes one of the turtle van tires, and I guess maybe it pops. And it also crunches up the bumper, but I don't think it actually ripped it off. I don't remember. I think it just crumpled up the one side of it. So while Mikey and Donnie fight Dreg, Raph is able to turn the van, and here you actually see the muffler. And here you actually see the pedal in this episode. Raph turns the van so Leonardo can use the roof blasters to shoot at Dreg. All right? That's awesome. With the distraction of the laser blasts, now the android body is able to grab Dreg, and Mikey and Don send both of them through a portal right before the android body explodes. So, this could have been it. This could have been the death of Dreg. Who knows if he would have came back in season 11. But, that's it. It's awesome that the van played a vital role in the very last battle the Turtles had on the show. They even used the roof blasters. So this is another episode that I highly recommend. If you're not a big fan of the Red Sky episodes, you should at least check this one out. I definitely think it's worth it. So that's it, right? No! There's one more thing I should talk about, right? And I'm only going to give you the abridged version here, okay? The van showed up in Turtles Forever. And look! You can actually see the Turtle Van keys. Just like Mikey was holding in the big blowouts. Now, in this episode, the inside of the van looks completely different. But what's really cool here is that I would include this in my list of Turtle Van battles. This is Turtle Van battle number 20. Here the guys return to the 2003 universe with the Turtle Van, and they use the van to attack an army of mutants. All right? Toka and Razar, who are never named in this, but they're obviously Toka and Razar, they jump on the van, and Donnie easily gets rid of Toka by opening up the side door so he can use the side blaster to fire on all of the mutants. Now, I love this scene and this shot. I think that's hilarious. It makes me laugh every time I see just Toka getting smashed like that. But what's even better is Razar gets smashed on the other side when Raph opens up the door to reveal a second side door blaster. Man, throughout the 1987 series, there would be times that it kind of looked like there could have been a blaster on either side of the van. And now finally, in Turtles Forever, there's a scene where there's actually two blasters shooting at these monsters. Too bad the beams don't really do too much damage. I think Raph says that they're tickling them or something like that. But then later on, it looks like all the monsters are dead, so I don't know. I know this is off topic, but seriously, I love this whole movie. It's such a great movie. I love Mikey screaming as he's dropping through the air on the blimp. I don't know. Sometimes I kind of miss those old days when Peter Laird was still in charge of Mirage, and I don't know, just kind of when I watch this thing, it kind of reminds me of the way the Turtles used to be. Yes, I do like some of the new Ninja Turtle stuff. I thought the Nickelodeon series was great, and some of the comics are great and stuff like that. But I just kind of miss when Mirage was in charge. It was just kind of a different feel and stuff like that. The guys drive up to the newly designed Technodrome, and, they don't blast the Technodrome with the roof blasters or anything. They get out of the van and enter the Technodrome, and, lots of other stuff takes place, including the Ninja Turtles finding out about the Ninja Turtle multiverse. And I'll tell you this, I could give two craps about multiverses. I don't really like them, except for the Ninja Turtles. This is the only place where I find it acceptable. I'm sick and tired of the Marvel multiverse and all that crap. I could do without it. I just want one Spider-Man. And I don't know. I just find this one acceptable. I like different types of Ninja Turtles interacting with each other. So after everything that takes place in the Technodrome, the guys leave in the Turtle Van. they drive past all these mutants who I assume they blasted dead. And they also drive with Casey Jones and April in the van. And the van, as I said before, looks completely different. You know, all these things are different. You could sort of making out the shapes of the scanner and stuff like that, but it's very off model. You know, it doesn't look how it did way back in the 1987 cartoon series. And you know, that's really it. The van gets blinked out of existence or turned to blue pencil before turning to nothing, and that's really it. So, thank goodness I'm finally done. Right? No, all right. I will mention one more thing. In the 2012 Nickelodeon series, the guys eventually drive around in a van that looks similar to the turtle van. This is from the episode Return to New York, and this is where I'm going to end it. But you know, the van in this episode does some things that you would expect it to, like the front actually turns down to protect it from laser blasts. The side door opens, and the guys shoot like soda and Mentos at people. The roof opens up so Leonardo can peek out. He even has like the roof blasters on top. I don't know. It's the Nickelodeon series was a great series too. You know, I got to admit, and it was cool that they try to include all these little nods to the old series. Especially this. Look at the bomb there. It says "Foot stinks," just like the old toy. And now I'm finally wrapping this thing up. I just don't get it. Like, how do you be in Wings for like 10 years and never learn how to sing a single note? And furthermore, why the hell does she sound so good on RAM? Oh, hey. Congratulations. You have made it through an odyssey of way too much information. It was a long, long journey, and now you're at the end of it. So, you know, over this video, there was lots of interesting things happening with the Turtle Van, right? Like 20 battles, you know, versus the Rock Soldiers and the Techno Rover versus the Mutant Plant from Dimension X. The Technodrome crew, whenever Splinter shot the guns out of their hands and shot the Shredder's feet. Fighting the evil Rex robots. Mac, April ramming the van into Shredder's boat. Blasting at the recycling robotic truck. The Turtle Terminator shooting at them and shooting out their tire. Or Leonardo whenever he became sort of a jerk and they were trying to get him with the net. Was it the net nabber? Whenever the Bad Family stole the van and Donatello had to try to fight his baby to get it back. Welcome Back Polarisoids featured two of them with the robotic garbage truck, the cataclysmic canyons of the Vulcan moon. That's with the lava monsters. Or when they fought the Livingstone gargoyle in the Vacation episodes, or they actually shot at the Triceratons with their blasters. They also shot at the Neutrinos when they were turned evil with the side door blaster. They tried to hit some of Drake's minions. The van was completely destroyed by Doomquest and his minion Draconis. You had whenever the Globfather took over the van and he used the blaster inside the van to shoot at the guys. Like, why would you even put an offensive weapon in there that could shoot you like that? When they fought Dreg in some video footage that Dreg was watching and the day the Earth disappeared? Or what about when they fought Dreg in the Microbot suit in the last episode, Divide and Conquer, or when they fought the 2003 mutants in Turtles Forever? You know, lots of great battles there. You might have, I don't know, I didn't include every single thing that could potentially be a battle. I kind of picked like the best ones to be the battles. Maybe there could have been some things that I had mentioned that you might think is worthy of being a battle, but I don't know. Tell me in the comments. Or how about the roof catapult, or the turtle launcher, as Donatello calls it, you know? They used that in Hot Rodding Teenagers from Dimension X. What's Michelangelo good for was kind of a weird-looking catapult in that one. Donatello's Bad Time, same kind of weird way that they had the catapult set up. Or Zack and the Alien Invaders. Or, I think the weirdest one was the one in New Mutation, whenever just Mikey shot out of the sunroof, you know, just barely got past that hole without losing an arm. Or what about when they used the roof grappling hooks, like in 50-Foot Irma, or Turtles Everywhere, or the underside grappling hook in Welcome Back Polarisoids, or whenever they opened up the headlights to reveal some water cannons that they used to shoot in Welcome Back Polarisoids. Let's see here. They used the roof blasters in like, I don't know, about 8 episodes, I guess? Or no, 7 episodes. In Enter the Fly, they shot it, it was shot by Splinter at, Shredder and Bebop and Rocksteady. In Superhero for a Day, the blaster actually shot grappling hooks. In Welcome Back Polarisoids, they were used as water cannons. In Night of the Dark Turtle, they blasted at the Triceratons. And Mobster from Dimension X, the Globfather shot, took control of the van and shot the tower, which fell down in the road and then caused Mikey to swerve uncontrollably. The Day the Earth Disappeared, Raph shot at Dreg and his minions. And then in Divide and Conquer, Leo shot Dreg whenever Dreg was fighting Mikey and Donatello in Krang's android body. And I will say this. After putting this video together, I kind of have a little more respect for 8, 9, and 10. When I first started doing this, I was almost like, should I even really look into those seasons that much? And like that would have been foolish if I didn't, because lots of cool stuff happened with the Turtle Van, even though the Turtle Van took quite a beating in those last 3 seasons. Let's see here. Whatever else can I find here? Some interesting things that popped up on the roof throughout the episodes. In Leonardo Lightens Up, they used the net nabber to try to capture him whenever he, became a jerk. In A Real Snow Job, there was actually that different radar dish on top. And then also Leonardo made a periscope appear on top of the Turtle Van. That was pretty cool. Or in Venice on a Half Shell, when they were in the water and Bebop and Rocksteady were coming towards them in a boat, they actually created like a ramp that Bebop and Rocksteady shot up in the air. Also, they had in A Real Snow Job, they had I think they had their skis on top of the roof, so that was pretty interesting. And the side door blasters, they used those in Hot Rodding Teenagers from Dimension X. Raph shot at the Techno Rover with it, and it came from beneath the sewers. Raph shot out the vines of the giant mutant plants. In Turtles Everywhere, Donatello shot backwards, like the seat was rotated, at the robotic truck that was following them. In Attack of the Neutrinos, Leonardo and Raph sat side by side and shot at the neutrinos in that mall when they were chasing after them. In Divide and Conquer, Leonardo shot back at Lord Dreg. Whenever Lord Dreg turned into a motorcycle and he was chasing after him, Leo was shooting back. And then in Turtles Forever, you had dual side door blasters with both Raph and Donatello shooting at all those. 2003 Raph and Donatello shooting at the 2003 mutant army. All that stuff was pretty cool. It's like if you didn't notice, there's only like 7 times they use the roof blasters, and not even all the times they're actually lasers. And they only use the side door blasters like 6 times, and one of them wasn't even in the series. It was that movie. So they really did not use the weaponry on the van hardly at all. There's like 194 195 episodes of the original series, so that's a very small percentage. Some other weapons that they had were like in Donatello's bad time, whenever Bedelia, I think, or maybe one of her stupid sons pushed the defense button, those hands popped out that threw the mud back at Donatello in the van or truck. Let's see here. Computer information. What did Donatello put in the turtle van? Well, he put in every weapon that he could find in Baxter Stockman's laboratory, and he put in a ton of surveillance gear. To begin with, there was beam generators and frequency tracers. In Mean Machines, I think that's the first episode, he actually calls that computer he uses, that tracking device, his scanner. And he doesn't always say scanner a lot, but I noticed, I think maybe in season 2, he said it the most, called it the scanner. In 50-Foot Irma, he used a lab table in the back of the van. In Sky Turtles, he used the gravity scope to search for Shredder's gravity-altering device. In the old Switcheroo, there's some different backgrounds in that episode. In Corporate Raiders for Dimension X, he used the computer in the back of the van to hack into Octopus Inc., and then later on, he used a microphone to talk to Casey Jones on the inside. In Turtle Terminator, they don't show him use anything specific, but he analyzes seaweed in the back. Donatello does. In Menace Maestro, Mikey uses a remote to turn on the televisions in the back. I think that's the only time you see a remote. In Raphael Knocks 'Em Dead, Donatello says they use a sound wave modifier so they don't hear Raph's jokes on the outside. And in Cufflink Caper, Donatello uses a microscope. In Donatello Nebula, what is it? Beyond the Donatello Nebula, there's some drawers in the back of the van that Mikey can use to put on a disguise. You know, there's like a mask drawer and stuff like that. In Donatello's duplicate, it says here that there is a feedback scanner. I don't even remember. It's been weeks since I wrote that. In Pirate Radio, Donatello turns a dial to reverse the ventriloquator at the end of that episode. In Welcome Back Polarisoids, he has that cool interface computer set up, and he also uses his computers to hack into Krang's computers. In A Real Snow Job, there's a pizza oven in the back on the ladder wall. In Venice on a Half Shell, Donatello uses the computers to create a strong magnetic field to steal Krang's item that's being transported to our dimension. And they use the dish in the middle of the van to create that magnetic field. You know, the one that would be like right here in the middle. In Artlist, there's a VCR in the back of the van. In April Goes Dutch, there's another pizza oven. In The Star Child, there's a police scanner. In New Mutation, Donatello uses a techno tracker in the back of the van. And like I said, whenever I do the actual toy, I'll talk about these things and put some clips or screenshots so you can get a better idea. I just figured I would try to read off some information just in case you want to know some stuff. Alright, so like conversions of the turtle van, right? In 20,000 Leagues Under the City, he turns the van into an amphibious vehicle. Same thing in Pirate Radio, another amphibious vehicle. Napoleon Bonafrog, Donatello turns the van into like a hovercraft, but then like it doesn't last very long, you know, he can't sustain it. And Super Irma, he turns the van into a submarine, and he actually shoots out torpedoes from the bottom of the van, which is pretty crazy. In A Real Snow Job, he turned the van into a snowmobile. And in Venice on the Half Shell, he like opened up some pontoons on the back of the van, which turned it into like a speedboat. You know, he was chasing after Bebop and Rocksteady in their boat. Some abilities is you know, in Donatello's Bad Time, he's able to turn the van skinny so that it can pass through some buildings. The van is shown to have super speed whenever Bedelia or one of the kids pushes the button. There's also a smoke screen. They use a parachute in that episode. He also has, like I said before, the mud missile hands, and then you also have the ejector hands at the end of the episode whenever they push the button and they come out from inside the van and grab the bads and throw them out the window. And Napoleon Bonafrog, as I said, you have the hovercraft capabilities. They also, while they're trying to escape from being buried underneath the crates, they accidentally turn on the smoke screen. In Super Irma, like I said, they turn into a submarine and they shoot a torpedo from underneath. And Too Hot to Handle, they use instant freeze spray jets to freeze the road because the road was melting in that one and they were sinking into the ground. In A Real Snow Job, they used another parachute. In White Belt Black Heart, they used hydraulic lifts. Remember, they were like going down too narrow of a street, so they used that to make the van go up and over the vehicle that they were going to collide with. In State of Shock, they used that bomb cannon or whatever, like in the back of the turtle van. Donatello put it in that thing, and a cannon popped out of the roof and then shot it up in the air so the bomb could explode safely. In the beginning of the end, that's when they start using like a new dashboard in the van. Like in season 10, there was that brand new dashboard, and you had that like turtle screen that they could either use to talk to April, or Mikey had the keyboard in front of that, and he was getting on the internet. And he was also, when Raph hit the autopilot, it said autopilot on that turtle comm looking screen. In Mobster from Dimension X, you have that blaster inside the van, which was a bad idea. And in Divide and Conquer, you have another parachute. For disguises, in Corporate Raiders from Dimension X, they put on those construction lights, you know. And then in Donatello's Bad Time, Donatello turned it into the ice cream truck that, you know, everybody still knew that it was the turtle van. And really, that's it for all the most interesting information. You know, like I said, when I do the actual toy review, I'll go into this stuff. I'll collect it a little better than this. But I do want to mention that you can see the Turtle Van keys in the big blowouts and also in Turtles Forever. And wow, holy crap. This has been a very busy 2 months putting all this stuff together. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you're still here, thanks for watching. You know, people tell me that they like to put on my very long videos and listen to it while working. So I hope I kept you entertained while you're going through it at work, man. Going through it. So talk to you later, and have a good one.